And welcome to the show, everybody. This is Tuned In Live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mocking some big troll loser over there. This is Tuned In Live. You are watching us live on twitch.tv/Arrow with a name. And if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, Arrow Entertainment, be sure to hit those follow, subscribe, and like buttons. Hold on. I gotta troll a troll here. Oh yeah, You know me. The lies being spewed by this particular person. I live in mom's basement and I play video games all day. And dude, get a life.
Worship God on a little screen TV.
Yeah, this is somebody who's like,
and all hell, Dr. Fauci.
And he's like, oh, he talked like this. He got a Confederate flag hanging up in his back. Motherfucker, I don't even own a Confederate flag. Why don't you fly your ass out here, your decrepit 60-year-old ass out here, and look at my house and tell me if I got a Confederate flag. And they go sit there and say...
He has that Biden flag hung up, like, oh, hell, Biden. and that mayor of his up there, too.
Then he sits there.
Dumb bitch.
Then he sits there and says, oh, you triggered. How the fuck am I triggered, dumb fuck? Like, I'm sorry. I have a full 40-hour-plus week job that I work overnights. Apparently, that's nothing to this person. This person, he's your typical far-left Democrat who's like, everything should be done in his perspective. If it ain't, then you're a sad loner. You're a loser who lives in mom's basement. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I work 40 hours a week. Physical labor, making a really good living, paying my bills, and spending time with my family. My fiance, who I will be marrying here sometime in the future. I spend time with my kids, but yet, me playing video games all day and podcasting and stuff. Oh yeah, I'm a loner and a loser. But yeah, go ahead. You're a pathetic old man. Why don't you get off your computer and your brand new Samsung phone? Get off of those and go spend quality time with your wife. I'm pretty sure she's wondering when she's going to finally be able to see you when you get off that computer doing, 5 different broadcasts a day on 4 different platforms that nobody knows you're on, and because you're pretty much a nobody, so whatever. Oh, I'm contracted through iHeartRadio and stuff. I got a contract, bitch. Spreaker is brought to you by, or it's a subsidiary of iHeartRadio. Spreaker is it's a platform for people who want to try to be podcasters, but you're like, oh, I'm contracted, bitch. You already said you paid out $300 some a year for Spreaker, so I was right. I was right, and you were trying to say, oh, I'm contracted. I'm like, you pay to be on Spreaker. There ain't no fucking contract, you retard. But anyway, I want to get into a very, very lovely topic today, and I know you're going to hate it. You hate hearing about it, but you're here, you'll listen, you'll comment, and you'll dislike, but oh well, who gives a shit? Today's topic, everybody, is there's my buddy Jeff. What's going on, man? I think you know what I'm talking about, man. And stuff. He sits over there playing video games and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I live a life, and you sit on your computer. You sit in your car, munching down your sandwich. Oh, I gotta get this in there. Oh yeah, pass the turkey. Anyway, loser boy over here. To get a fucking life and stuff. So yeah, today I'm joined by my buddy Mike, co-host as always. And if you guys are in a Discord, if you want to talk about it, if you want to come in and chat with us, hit that general VC right over there. Join on in. We're talking about the legacy of video games today. You drink the liquor and run child sex rings. Yeah, apparently we all do. Oh, God. So, yesterday, yeah, Mike, you were over here watching me play Elden Ring. What were your thoughts about that game, for one?
Matter of fact, the thing, I was playing Dark...
Yeah, you said Dark Souls Remastered.
Yeah, the remastered version of it. And like you say, I've noticed a little bit of trend. It's like the same. I'm not sure if it showed you how to fight it or not. I couldn't really tell because I guess the contrast of the brightness on that game or whatever. It could be a little bit
It's
better, like you
very
said.
dark. I know. I think there is a contrast on the game itself. Usually those kind of games, usually those games they give you that option when you go in a game, but before you go, have you enjoying Elden Ring? Just started playing it. Yeah, I streamed it yesterday, Fender, for 4 hours. I streamed it for 4 hours. And if you go back and watch, yeah, you'll see me crying like a little bitch. You'll see me struggling. I did the first 2 mini bosses on there. Took me a bit to beat them, and I'm just sitting there fucking around with them and all. And I finally eventually did it, because those kind of games are full of trial and error. But once you get through them, it's a big sigh of relief. That's how Friday the 13th is. You can't see shit; it's too dark. Yeah, I know. It's like you gotta turn the brightness up in the game just to see, but then it's like it's too bright, it's like it fades it out for you. It's like I guess they figure, dark games, it's like it's meant to be played in the dark. It's meant to be played at night when when nobody's home and you can scare the fuck out of yourself and shit like that. But
It really isn't that scary though. I mean, like you said, we said yesterday, it was like Bloodborne. If you played Bloodborne, it's pretty much that.
That's what it
Dark
is.
Souls mix. But the thing about with Dark Souls Remastered, you can't jump, but on that one you can. I've noticed. I was like, damn, I can't even freaking jump on this damn game.
Yeah, I noticed that
Which
too.
is kind of much a bummer of the remaster. I mean, yeah, if they remastered something, they should have just added the jump button to it because it makes a lot of sense instead of walking all the way fucked around. I mean, when I was playing Dark Souls Remastered yesterday, it took me a little bit to get the handling of it because I was like, damn, I haven't played Bloodborne in a long time, and geez, Pete's trying to figure out the configurations and the buttons and what to do. It was kind of difficult at first, but then I got the handle of it. Now I'm like, my character thing, it shows level 6, but I'm not sure what the 0 is about. I guess that's your leveler or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played any of the Souls games because I rarely get in there to play it. Oh, Fender, if you ever want to join in, I'll put the link in the Discord, Haggie's Discord, if you ever want to join in. Jeff, if you ever want to join in, if you get the time, man, you can hop in. We can chat a little bit here because we're going to talk about the whole legacy of video games today, consoles, games, whatever the topic is for games, any console at all. We'll definitely talk about it. But yeah, I get you, Jeff. There's a lot of games out there that it's too fucking dark. Like when I stream a game and it's too dark to see, like I'll look over the second monitor on the stream just to see where I'm at because it's like there's certain corners I can't see. I don't know if it's the glare on my monitor or just in the game. It's like, fuck, I know there's something in this corner, but I can't get it. That's how I felt about Elden Ring yesterday because there was a cave I was in. It was for the second boss I was doing, which was the Beast Man. And there was these fucking wolves in the cave, and it was just so dark in these corners, and I couldn't see shit. Like, I'm looking for them. I know they're there, but I don't see them. They're nowhere. But then, of course, they start eating your ass, and it's like 3 swipes later, you're dead. But with Elden Ring, I will say you're going to enjoy it, Fender. You're going to enjoy it because last night I was just, for whatever reason, I was just so addicted to it, and I'm never usually addicted to these types of games. And they're from Software, of course, and Bandai Namco, and they usually put out really good entries. It's one of those. It's kind of like when you look at video game consoles nowadays, you got like Xbox and PlayStation that are more mainstream, and Nintendo just sits in the back like, we'll release something in the future. We'll release something that's going to blow your mind. And then, of course, they do, and it's phenomenal, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild kind of thing. So it's kind of like that. It's one of those developers that rarely put a good game out there, but when they do, it's like, holy shit. And Elden Ring is no exception. Like right now, the only thing Elden Ring has negative going for them is the servers, because there's not enough multiplayer servers for people to get online and join up to 3 people to go in and do exploring, do battle, whatever. I was trying to do that last night with my uncle. He finally bought it, and we're just sitting here, in voice chat. Hey, what's up, Ben Briggs? What's going on, man? We're just sitting here. And it's like, I want to join in with him. And all we could do on each other's end of the microphone is fucking scream. Like, holy shit! Oh, fuck! How many times we die in that game. but just exploring alone and discovering more monsters, more different creatures and shit. It's a whole new experience. Like Elden Ring is way more open than a Dark Souls game, way more open than Bloodborne. Like those games, they're open world in a way, but they still limit you. But Elden Ring, the world is wide open. It's a big map, and you could take care of anything at any time. It depends on the armor you got, I guess, and the weapons you got, and how well equipped you are when you go into these areas and shit. So it definitely does give you a challenge. It does have that difficulty set up the fucking high there. So if you go into Elden Ring, just imagine, you're going into like it's not a Dark Souls game. It's a spiritual successor to it, which means it's not in the same franchise. It's from the same people that develop these games. So it's a spiritual successor with a lot of subtle differences. Like they have a crafting system in there, or like Mike was saying, you could jump in there, you could jump around and shit. I just love, like, there's more characters you could choose from. You could choose any different type of character, whatever your fighting style is, whatever your play style is. The game is beautifully crafted. The wide world is absolutely beautiful. The creatures, oh my god, like some of them are like, what the fuck is this? Because I fucking venture out and I see some weird creatures. Like there was one thing I described to my uncle was it was like a ball. It looked like a giant ball of tentacles rolled up and shit. And I was like, there's a big ball over here of it's like two tentacles hanging out of it. And my uncle was like, yeah, I wouldn't go near something that's like, what you just described in those two descriptions. And then I'm just standing there watching it slowly slither toward me. And then it grows legs and all these tentacles come out and it starts chasing me. I'm like, oh shit! He's like, yeah, I told you. It's like, I didn't expect it to do that.
Like some Resident Evil shit.
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
Then there was an area where this big ass tree is, and there's several giant trees in the game, and it's just it's like breathtaking in a way when you walk up to them. It's like, okay, what's the significance of this area? Because it's an icon on the map, this tree. And I'm just going around the tree. Of course, there's other enemies around and shit, and I'm just ignoring them, little enemies, and I'm like, I would have figured there may have been a door to this tree or something, right? So I start walking away. Next thing I know, this big fucking health bar pops up at the bottom for this fucking for this boss. I'm like, what? Where the fuck did he come from? I turn around. I shit you not. There's this fucking tree with a giant axe chasing me. I was like, oh shit! He was like,
Are you sure it wasn't that horseman that you kept on dying from?
Oh no, this is nowhere near him, man. This is an actual fucking tree coming at me with a goddamn axe. I was like, oh shit. I started fucking running. I was able to get away from it and all. But yeah, there's like several of those horsemen. There's the one with that's the golden horseman, and then you got the regular horsemen, out there that are they're simple to do. They're simple to take down as long as you're horseback on your enemy.
5 times just on him.
Oh my god! It was like 5 times, and I was like, nah, fuck this. I'm just getting my shit and I'm running. I wasn't even gonna bother with him because some of them bosses, they take a good while to defeat. Like I was even watching Wings of Redemption play it, and he was struggling on one of the bosses, and he was like, I don't even think I'm supposed to be here yet. I don't even have the fucking weapons for this. But yeah.
Well, in Bloodborne, you described on your gameplay yesterday, you was talking about the wolves that was on that bridge.
Yeah.
And on Bloodborne, and I remember on that Bloodborne, it took a buddy of mine on I played gaming with, that's from Canada, and he told me, he's like, yeah, you got to jump back a couple times just to kill them guys. You got to have a longer staff or whatever just to kill them, because if you don't, you get too close, you end up fucking dead within minutes.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a certain thing you got to get to kill them. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of fucking sense. After I try to go in there and hit gun ho.
Yeah, those enemies, like me and Tim were talking about.
I think, and also in not Elder, Dark Souls Remastered, there is no difficulty. It's just one difficulty. Period.
That's in all those games.
So,
yeah, and any game from
Bloodborne, Bloodborne, I think you do have a difficulty change though. I think.
I can't remember. You'll have to let me
I'm
know.
right
It's
now.
been
I'm right now in the process of installing it. So once
yeah.
I do a gameplay, I'll record it. But
Yeah, I can't remember much. It's been a few years since I played it, but I think the difficulties are hard and fuck me harder. I think that's what it
no, I
is.
think it's normal or hard.
Yeah, because
Easy, normal, hard. But I mean,
I think it does sound familiar because I think I chose normal when I last played it, and I was like, this
mhm.
fucking shit ain't normal.
Yeah, but the people that kept on pissing me off is them little fucking pitchfork fuckers
Oh
on
man, I
Bloodborne. I
hated
was like,
those.
you little bastards.
But yeah,
Then you have to get the gun and shoot them. I was like, yeah, I can shoot your asses. Come
hmm
on by here.
See, that's what I was telling Tim yesterday because he was going through. I guess he was reading up on the different characters for Elden Ring, depending on their weapon of choice and their
See, in
skills and
Dark
abilities.
Souls, I'm playing as a thief or the
Okay,
thief or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
but
playing
you
as
do
this.
pretty much get the same choices as you do on there
hmm
on Elden Ring. So it's pretty much a Dark Souls remastered, like 2.0. That's pretty much what
Well,
it
people
is.
say it's like Dark Souls 2.0, but people gotta understand it's not a Dark Souls game. It's a spiritual successor. Any games that are like that, people will say that it's related to Dark Souls, but it's the gameplay. That's what people are addicted to when it comes to these type of games. If it's
Hmm.
from Bandai Namco and from software, you know what to expect. And I already knew what to expect. You know, like I've been hearing so much about Elden Ring for the past month and a half, or like they even had a demo run of it back in I think it was back in the summer or the fall. They had a demo run of it for certain servers,
Hmm.
but it's something to expect. If you see a trailer for a game that says From Software, Bandai Namco, it's a game that's going to be pretty much like Dark Souls. You got games like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Lords of the Fallen,
Soul
Sekiro.
Reaver has nine Nakomi also, I think. But that
No,
game's
no,
old.
was it Soul
Soul
Reaver?
Reaver is too.
Mm-mm. No, they're IDOS. Yeah, they're IDOS software. They're not From Software. They weren't Bandai Namco either. It was a completely they were completely different. But yeah, we'll go into that too today. Different companies and stuff like that. But yeah,
Hmm.
Elden Ring. I was telling Jeff about it yesterday. I said I did a 4 hour stream and I told him what game, and I was like, I don't think you'd be in this kind of game because if you ever heard of Dark Souls, that's pretty much what this is. And he said, yeah, I don't play games like that because those kind of games, if you don't know what you're doing or what you're going into, you're gonna die a lot. Like you're not even gonna understand. Like you can have the biggest sword out there, and you go in, and the
Still get
first
killed.
enemy you come across, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to do it. You're not gonna get nowhere because of that.
Yeah, but ain't Bloodborne you can jump in Bloodborne though? I
I
think you could.
I don't remember if I could jump in Bloodborne or not.
I think so.
Yeah, that I can't
Because I think
remember.
the farthest I've gotten was somewhere. I don't remember how I stopped that last, but that was on my last PS4 I had, which I gave it away to somebody. But now I think since it's on this one now, I think I have to start all over again. But that's easy to do once you get the
Yeah.
hint of playing Dark Souls. So
I will say one good thing about Elden Ring, Fender, if you're still here. From what I understand, any of the bosses that you kill, mini bosses or whatever, they stay dead. So you ain't got to worry about having to do those over again. How?
yeah, not in Dark Souls.
Oh, I know. Bloodborne was the same way. Bloodborne, I completed the first two bosses. One of them was this werewolf in the graveyard. He took
Yep.
me a good hour to beat. And then there was this giant on the bridge. That one took me three or
That
four
was the wolves
tries.
on the bridge.
No, the wolf wasn't on the
The
bridge. The wolf
part of
was
it was on the first half, but on the second half
mm-mm.
was something different.
No, it was this giant ogre or something that was on the bridge. The werewolf, he was at a graveyard. It was a shape shifting werewolf that I fought in the graveyard. It was a small cemetery. That was a
Well,
bitch and
you
a
know how you
half.
start off. Okay, you know how you start off on the gameplay. You can go kill that big ass metal thing, or if you go past some pillagers who are burning a cross for somebody on it, whatever, and then you go up them stairs. Once you get to the other side to go find the witches and stuff, you got to go up the other side, and you have to go across to the other house to go get whatever you got to get and get out of there. I think there's some kind of item you need to go kill them wolves once you walk up on the part of the little stone bridge, and then you walk to your left, you see them 2 ass wolves that you got to kill. They're like medium-sized wolves, and then after you get that, you go through another section and it closes off. Then you got to face the boss balls.
Yeah.
That's why I stopped that last time. Then I got to the graveyard. I had to fight that night guy. He wasn't that bad. He was like a 15-20 minute battle, but he was pretty fun to fight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get transferred to a different area, I think it was.
Oh, I remember. I think I still had the video. I'm gonna put it up on our Facebook page. If you guys are on Facebook, be sure to follow us on there at Arrow12022. Our Facebook page is titled Arrow with a Name. I think it's Arrow with a Name or Arrow Entertainment. It's one of those. But I got a video I'm gonna post on there later related to Bloodborne. This was back in the heyday on my older channel, and I was gonna do a review of Bloodborne, and I had a buddy of mine who was sitting beside me, and I didn't get to do a full-on video review because the software was taking a shit on me. I only got maybe about 3 minutes worth. But I opened up. I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna play Bloodborne." And I was like, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't talk about Dark Souls. We don't talk about Bloodborne, because he knows what we're going into, right?" So the gameplay starts and it's loading into the game, and as soon as it loads in, I just immediately drop dead, and I'm just like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "And you're dead." I was like, God damn. All I could do was laugh. I was like, "Oh yeah, this game is hard as shit. So as you start, you fucking die."
Well, yes and no, but you also get to start out with certain things like I think a staff, a sword, and a whip.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying, like, it was just so coincidentally funny. Like, as soon as my game loads in, my character just drops dead, and it's like, yeah, don't even bother playing this game. You're just dead. It's like as soon as you load in, no matter how many times, you're dead. That's all it was.
Yeah, but the thing is, man, I've noticed one thing too. Like, if you get a lot of them little rubles or whatever the hell you collect to kill an enemy, if you get killed at certain times, it deducts some rubles by half.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. That's like in the games like Dark Souls. It's a subtle difference between Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Like in Souls, when you die, there's souls that you collect as currency, and if you don't collect that currency when you come back to life, you end up losing that currency. So let's say you have like 800 souls that you can use to upgrade your weapons or buy health potions, mana potions, stuff like that. If you don't collect that stuff when you come back, you lose it, and you have to build that up over again. But in Elden Ring, you lose coin currency. You pick up coins. You don't pick up souls, you pick up coins. And anything you pick up along the way, like weapons and stuff like that, luckily you don't end up losing any of that. Because I could have swore that was one thing with Dark Souls, was you lose anything you pick up alongside the souls. But no, you just lose your currency, which is good. So any upgraded weapons or anything at all you pick up along the way that's not currency, you'll still keep it. You'll just lose your currency, which is a pain in the ass because I lost so many coins last night, and I visited a couple of these little guys sitting on the side of the road that you can buy and sell shit from, and they had good armor, they had good weaponry, and I'm like, I don't have the coins for this shit. I lost it in the last battle with this guy on the bridge, like even this one guy. Oh my god. So I'll end Elden Ring here with this. So I was exploring last night, and I was on the south end of the map. I was like on the bottom of the map, very bottom. I was exploring, and there's this little castle that you can. There's a little fireplace that you can discover in there. They're travel points. That's a new thing now. So you could fast travel to different points of the map rather than walk a long way. So that's a good thing as long as you discover these little fireplaces things. So there's this one I had to discover down there, and there's this fucking 30-foot giant with this giant bow and arrow that's guarding it. And he's slow to aim the shot. Like, he slowly reaches behind him to pull an arrow out, and he slowly brings the bow up, and you like, oh god, some big shit's about to happen. I know it. And I'm just on my horse, like fucking dodging back and forth. Like, this dude don't miss. I shit you not, this guy does not miss at all. And he hit me a couple times, and I had to heal, but I was able to make it in there. hit the fireplace, and then run out. So I came running out of there at one point. I was fully healed. And I ran up the fucking road. I'm like, please don't see me. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. And I got halfway up the road. He saw me. Not only did he saw me, not only did he see me, I turned the camera around, and all I saw for a split second was this arrow come flying at me and hit me in one fucking swipe. I was like, oh, you motherfucker. That's all.
Now, let me ask you a couple questions, Mike. All right. Since you're describing the game, let me ask you a couple questions about the game.
All right.
What would you rate it so far out of a 10 being the greatest, 1 being the worst? What would you rate it as a gamer that, you played games all your life pretty much? In your perspective, what would you rate it as?
Well, for me, there's different, mind if I join it? Yeah, hop in, man. Yeah. That's old Tim. We ain't heard from him from over a year. Yeah, hop on in, man.
Since he's been over in Arizona.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what I just told him. I'm like, yeah, hop on in. Yeah, we're free and open. There he is, Tim.
Hey, Tim. But so what would you rate it as, Mike?
Hold on a second, Tim. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you go, loud and clear. Good to hear that sexy voice of yours. So yeah, my type of gaming, like there's different types of gamers out there. You got your what the fuck do you call him? The type of gamers that play like cell phone games and stuff. You're not hardcore gamers, but there's different types of gamers out there that you play either phone games, you play mobile games, you'll play console games. You got PC gamers. Then you got those type of gamers that are either into racing games or just sports games or action adventure, RPG. Games like this, they are RPG related. They have RPG elements to them. And for the high difficulty that these games are, they are for the true highest. They're like for the, I quoted it yesterday, they're like for the top tier of gamers that are looking for a challenge. The gamers that, if you're like 20 or 30 plus years old and you play games like Ghosts and Goblins, Battletoads, Ninja Gaiden, anything on the original NES, SNES, all that stuff, Castlevanias. If you're a top tier gamer who's into...
Don't be dissing Castlevania now.
I'm not dissing Castlevania. I love Castlevania. I'm just saying,
I've played several versions of Castlevania.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for the top tier gamers that play games like that are looking for a challenge, these types of games are for them. And I'm not really quite up there, even though I do like games like Castlevania. I love playing Castlevania. I love Ninja Gaiden. But when it comes to Dark Souls, I normally don't play. Yeah, what's that?
I know I probably jumped in the middle or the beginning of this, but I cannot find any game that excites me anymore.
Yeah, that's what people are saying nowadays about video games. They say that there's not anything too exciting or for them. The people think that video games are going downhill with a lot of these different releases. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too, comparing games back then to today also. But something like Elden Ring, and from my experience playing it, I don't quite want to give it a 10 out of 10 just yet because I haven't really fully gotten into the game. I've only played 2 mini bosses, and of course I got, Lycan, the other Tim, he's telling me, oh, you're still on the tutorial. I'm like, how the fuck am I still on the tutorial? How is this still a tutorial, So it's I beat 2 mini bosses. Even though I got my ass handed to me several times, it's all about trial and error. So I managed to get through them, and I felt a big sigh of relief. I was like, yeah, I completed this. I'm getting through it. I'm having fun. And of course, discovering more lands and discovering, more creatures, opening up the world and expanding it. I will say, even though a lot of people have been giving it a 10 out of 10, for now, I would say I would give it an 8 or 9 out of 10. It's still pretty high. I'm not too far into it, like I said, story-wise. I've just been playing through and just having fun with it. Now, once they get more servers open up for the multiplayer to where you can play alongside 2 other friends, that is sure to make it a lot more easier and a lot more fun, a better experience for people. I'm waiting on that. But yeah, I definitely do enjoy it. If you are willing to give something a try that's of that difficulty, if you never played Dark Souls, I would say, I wouldn't say rent it. You can't really rent games anymore, but give it a try or something, or look at the reviews, look at the gameplay footage or whatever. These types of games, they're not for everybody, but it's definitely. I want to say I was addicted last night. Like, I didn't want to get off the game. I wanted to get right back on it and play it. And
you're forgetting one thing, Mike.
What's that?
Technically, you can rent. You gotta remember, it's called a demo.
Yeah, they do have demos for a lot of games. That is true, but they don't have demos for every single thing. If they had an offline demo for Elden Ring, huh?
I don't think they have a demo for Dark Souls. I'm not sure.
They did, but it was a trial for a while, and then they shut it down.
Yeah.
Just like they do for Call of Duty or Mortal Kombat or some. Well, Mortal Kombat don't have one, but I know Call of Duty does.
Yeah, they rarely do. Like when they do a Call of Duty demo, sort of, it's a beta. It's a multiplayer beta to test the servers and to test the game out, and they usually have them. They usually run for like a week or so, but they don't keep servers up for them. Yeah, they don't keep servers up for them. It's all it is. It's a run of servers to test the game, to see how balanced the game is, to see how well people do online, see if there's any dropouts, see if there's any glitches. And that's all it is. They're just testing the game, and if people are having fun with it, if people are enjoying it, if there's nothing wrong with it, if there's no glitches, if there's nothing that's crashing the game or whatever, if it can hold all these players, then they go off of what the beta does, and then they implement that into the final game. And of course, they shut the beta servers down, and all you're left with is an empty beta box, an empty little box on your dashboard that says Call of Duty Advanced Warfare Multiplayer Beta that you can no longer access because there's no servers to it anymore. That's pretty much all you're left with right there. So at this point, it's like it's pretty much worthless having that on your dashboard.
Okay. And you brought up COD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm calling it COD.
Everybody does.
Has any of you played the new one yet?
Yeah, I have it. Vanguard. It's bad. It truly is.
Yeah, I've heard some shit about that. I'm not really happy about Call of Duty right now because I played it last time and it kept on kicking me out. The game personally.
Like, I haven't even beaten.
And I don't think they have enough servers for them games anymore, so that's why I'm like, keen on the next 2024 they're gonna come out with.
The reason why I asked that is because me and my friend Chris, which you guys probably all know, we tried to play zombies with 3 people, and it kept kicking me out of his group.
Huh.
Yeah, well, the zombies, they're always going to be more worried about the zombies because that's what everybody plays on them Call of Duty games is more of the zombies than they do of the gameplay and the multiplayer stuff. Because the zombies is pretty much is where their money's going to be put at in them Call of Duty games is the zombies than the original gameplay and all that. So that's why they come up with all these Vanguard, Cold War, Modern Warfare, Advanced Warfare, whatever the hell the first one was. They put them all on the same server because of the zombie trials.
I got Cold War, but for some reason I can only play multiplayer and zombies. I can't get on the campaign. It won't let me load it.
You know why? They uninstalled the campaign for you. Here's what they do. They try to compress space.
They uninstalled the campaign already?
Yeah, let me explain that. So, what happens
I
with
ain't playing the campaign right now.
what they do with these games, and it's very confusing, and it's pretty fucking stupid in my opinion. They figure you get these newer consoles. I of course I always say I got the Series X, and there's people out there like even Jeff, if you're still here, you got the PS5. You're limited on space, and you know every new console generation that comes out, every new game that comes out is taking advantage of the hardware, the newer hardware. And of course,
I think most of that has to do with graphics, if you honestly ask me. Because, I mean, let's think about it here for a second, Mike. All right, you get a new console every year or 2 years compared to
pretty much
what they do, at least. And they usually come out with $400 ones and $500 ones, and it's mostly because of what? The graphics. It's really in the space. That's it. If you honestly think about it for 1 second, that's all that thing is, because they put new hardware that gives you the more space, but also because of the graphic content, which makes some games a lot more larger, is because of the graphics.
Well, that's half true. You know, that is half true. The graphics, they're looking to make video games to look more realistic when it comes to the graphics, but it's not just that. With the graphic processor, you also need true power behind it. It all comes with the specs of a video game. It's like a PC. If you have a PC that has a good graphics card, the memory, the RAM has to be good. It has to be high in there. The processor has to be good. You got to have all these components in there to make sure that the console doesn't overheat. Like with the Series X, with those games, it's not just about the graphic part of it. It's not about the quality of it. It's about running the game at 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second. How fast the game can load, how fast the game can be ran, and how good it looks. Not only that, they make it to where it could be ran on 4K TVs. You could play games at 4K resolution. Plus, you got the ability to quick resume games, you know, swap games back and forth without having to wait. They eliminate the load time in the games, too. So if you got a game like GTA that takes like 2 minutes to load up, and I know that for a fact. Everybody's played GTA 5. It's been fucking 8 years. We need a new Grand Theft Auto. But GTA 5...
Well, they did just release the trailer of something on Faker Book about GTA 6.
No, they said that they're in pre-production.
That was a rumor.
It was for if it's a trailer, it's for the next gen upgrade for GTA 5. GTA 6 is still in pre-production. You're not going to see a trailer for GTA 6 for another 2 years. So Rockstar did confirm.
They even decided to make it.
Well, they did confirm. Rockstar confirmed that they are working on it. It's in pre-production. You're not going to see a whole lot or hear a whole lot about it. So anything you hear about GTA 6 between now and then, it's going to be fake news. Like Jeff Tutorials. Like Jeff Tutorials. That dude on YouTube, he is the biggest clickbaiter when it comes to GTA videos. And this dude, he's a big fraud. He's a fake. You know, he makes all these videos talking about, hey guys, be sure to comment below and like and subscribe, and you'll be nominated for a shark card. I'm like, there ain't no such. You can't get a shark card anywhere. Shark card is in-game currency. You know how stupid do children have to be for that? But anyway, you know, if you follow something like
you don't
that,
want the answer to that question.
What's that, Tim?
You don't want the answer to that question.
Yeah, I know. So it's like anything that you see online, don't believe it unless you fully research into it. Just look at Rockstar. You know, Rockstar, they did confirm, look, we're working on the game. We know people are anticipating it. You know, we're tired of, like how many times can you port GTA 5 between platforms? It started out on 360 and PS3 and PC. Now it's on PS4, it's on Xbox One, and then you get a PS5 and an Xbox Series upgrade. It's like, how many times can you beat this fucking game over and over?
I was pissed when they shut down the PS3 servers. I had so many millions of fucking dollars and I lost it all.
Yep, yeah, because you figure... Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tim, if you got a server, if you got a game on the PS3 or the 360, it's gone. Yeah, they shut it down.
I don't even have to worry about any of the GTAs
Yeah.
because now,
Mad.
which it's probably old news, and everyone has noticed it by now. All the GTAs, you can actually get them on Xbox now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just
Until they come out with another Xbox, and you got to play it again on another Xbox.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about the other entries like Vice City and San Andreas. Yeah, because I actually did get the GTA trilogy.
Yeah, I heard about that trio shit. That trio shit was a waste of $60 over graphics. I mean, he's gonna pay. I mean, I get it. If you really want them 3 games, great, it's a great buy for you. But if you already played the games and beat them, and all you bought was just because of the graphics, that was a waste of $60.
Pretty much, it is.
I bought one of them. I think it's gotta remember which one it is. I think Vice City.
Mm-hmm.
To try it out. I deleted that shit right away. One, it wasn't because of the graphics.
I guess the controls.
Yeah, the graphics were a little weird. Yeah, it was the controls.
Yep.
Yeah,
because they have 2 sets of controls. They have controls preset for modern, and they have one for classic. And I was trying it out. I'm like, it takes a little bit getting used to, and I'm like, man, this the controls is what pretty much turned the thing around for the game and all. But the graphics, like, I mean, you can enhance the graphics. I mean, people were, okay, let's do a remaster of this game. Let's do a remaster of that game. Like, yeah, that's pretty much what the industry is relying on, is remasters of games that we ain't seen in years. But it's like GTA, you can already get GTA Vice City or San Andreas. You can already get those on the consoles, and they're not remastered. You can already play those. So there's no need to remaster those. But I would say, like, bring back classic franchises that have not been mentioned in years. Like, okay, how about a new Max Payne? How about a new Manhunt? How about a new Actually, I'm getting ready to say Midnight Club. There's actually a trailer out there. They're making a new Midnight Club. Midnight Club 6, I think it is. There is a new Midnight Club coming out. There was... Yep, so am I. There was going to be a Bully 2, but they pulled the plug on that years ago.
Scrapped.
Yeah, they pulled the plug on that years ago. They already talked about that.
I know I might be old school with these games, but I'll still stick with my originals.
Yeah, I still got
like the RPG games.
Yeah, and that's what today's show.
I heard, and I read a lot on it. Is they're coming out with another FFX3.
FFX3.
I think it's
in layman's terms. No, in layman's terms, they're coming out with a Final Fantasy X3.
Oh, Final Fantasy 10.
Yeah.
Oh, 13, you mean?
Nope, Final Fantasy 10-3.
Let me look that up and make.
I thought that'd be 13.
No.
They already have a 13.
That's weird.
Final Fantasy X3. Yeah, because you got 10-1 and 10-2. Yeah, Final Fantasy X is 10 in Roman numerals. Let's see. This was rumored last year on IGN. Final Fantasy X-3 has a plot and could come to life after Final Fantasy VII Remake is finished. Okay, so I guess as soon as they finish the second half of Final Fantasy VII Remake, they'll start working on it. So it's not going to come out anytime soon, but there is mention of 10-3. But yeah, it's not 13, because I know what he's talking about. Like I said, I was just looking it up. But it's like Final Fantasy X way back on PS2, and they also have it now on Xbox, and they have it on PlayStation stores. I do have it on Xbox myself, 10-10-2.
10-3 is going to continue where 10-2 left off.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Like, I guess they must have. I guess I can't think of any more stories to add to it because you got 15. I haven't played much of 15.
Yeah.
I gotta get back into playing that, but I guess they're going off of original content and continuing off of there. That's like, what was it 13? You got 13 and 13-2. I don't think no, there's not a 3 on
And
there.
then you got Lightning Returns.
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah,
You got Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and 13-3, which they renamed Final Fantasy Lightning Returns.
yeah.
You know what I really think they should
You gotta
really
remember,
make, though?
Mike. You gotta remember, Mike. I played all these games.
I know. You've told us. I know. I played
You know
a
what they
few of
really
them.
should make, though,
What's
out
that?
of all this?
Uh,
Hold on, Tim. They really should make, like, you know how they have all these Resident Evils, right? 1 through
oh
8 right
God.
now. No, hear me out. And this would be a big seller if the game people would do something like this. You know how Doom, you have certain stages, right?
Yeah.
Like, you go through certain stages like that? Okay. That's how I think they should do Resident Evil, but in an open world. Like, okay, one part of the world you go through, like Resident Evil 1, but it's all first-person shooter, though. And then another part of it be off of Resident Evil 2, and then 3, 4, etc.
Hold on. Let me hold you up there because they
I
already.
see where he's going.
They hold on. They already got that. It's called the Umbrella Chronicles and the Dark Side Chronicles.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
you
gotta use
he's
like
talking about combining.
Yeah, combining the.
He's talking about combining them into an open world.
Yeah, but yeah, like for right now, they got something similar to that. It's rail shooters. They're the Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Side Chronicles. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, I wouldn't say like, I mean, they could go off the original content and do that, like stage by stage, and just do that. Like do it in the RE engine right now, the first person RE engine, like they had with RE7 and 8. I could probably see that.
Make it like a Doom.
Yeah.
Make it like a Doom.
And what else they should do, followed by what he just said, instead of redoing everything, and this might sound crazy, make it off. You guys will probably disagree with my next sentence. Make it off of the movies.
That's not a bad idea.
Movies are going off the game. Actually, it's kind of like you mentioned there, Tim.
But
it's actually going off. The movies are going actually off the game. Actually.
Well,
like the new one. The new one's pretty badass.
Well, I see where Tim's going. Like, even though the movies they take elements from the games. Like the first 2 movies, they took elements from the first 2 games. No, first 3 games. I'm sorry, the first 3 games up to Nemesis and all. And then after that, like creature wise, character wise, they take it from the rest of the games and they make their own stories. But I see where he's going at, like the type of story that they're following with the movie, like with the characters, like Alice. Yeah, make Alice a playable character. Yeah.
And bring all the characters into the game.
Actually, I think they're trying that.
You gotta think. Speaking of what you said about the movies, if I'm correct, and I'm probably not correct about this, Leon wasn't in most of the movies.
No, he wasn't. He was only in.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't even in the first one until later on.
He was in Retribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, Retribution is when they brought his character, Ada, and Barry Burton into it. And of course, Barry, he ends up getting shot off. He doesn't really get that much glory in it. And
but bring Alice, Chris.
I think the Chris story was kind of interesting upon the new movie that just came out. I didn't even think about that for a moment. I'm like, that's Chris Redfield? I was like, I didn't even hear him. I totally forgot he was in the first one.
And put the characters that are in the 8 one in the new game.
Yep, that too. Now,
yeah, I'm curious how 9's going to play
Ethan?
out,
I think the guy's name was Ethan, I think.
It's
in the
Ethan.
8th one.
Yeah, because you figure 7,
Yeah,
8,
bring
and
them
9.
into a new one.
7, 8, and 9. They're a trilogy within itself. That's the Ethan story, and it's going to continue with one more with 9. And after that, I mean, Resident Evil is a franchise that will never die off. You know, there's like 20
It's
plus.
pretty much like Star Wars. You get 1,
You know-
2, 3, which is the Leon story, pretty much. And you have 4, 5, 6 is the Leon / Chris and all the rest of the characters. But where does 0 and Revelations 1 and 3, 1 and 2 come in, and then you got
Exactly.
Veronica
Well,
X.
they're already said in the game. 0 is the prequel to Resident Evil 1. That's the story with Rebecca Chambers. She comes in with that guy, what's his name? I think it was Billy. They come in off the train.
Billy meets up, I think, in 6. I think that's the last time you ever see him is in 6.
No, you don't see him in 6. He dies in 0.
He dies in 0.
He dies in 0. Yeah.
No, because then where's it? Okay, 6 has 2 other characters I've never seen before.
Yeah. I forgot what the character's name was under Chris.
One was a prisoner and with the girl. I don't know who the hell that one was.
That was Jake Wesker. That was Albert Wesker's son.
Okay.
And then you had the African girl.
Well, she was some of those characters were just throwing characters like in 5, but with a 6 you had Leon with this other random agent that was part of, the unit that he was in. She's just a new throwaway character that survived. In Chris's story, there was another soldier that fought alongside him. There's no backstory to that guy. He's just another character. When you get to the one with Sherry Birkin, who's an adult, she's an agent. She's working alongside Jake Wesker, who you learn is Albert Wesker's son. That's the character right there. So Billy no longer exists in the universe. He was only in Resident Evil 0. He got killed off. And then, of course, Rebecca Chambers, she survives 0, and you run across her in the first Resident Evil game as Chris Redfield. And, of course, if you follow the story, then, from there on out is, her story right there. But, yeah, that's where 0 falls in. Revelations, I want to say Revelations was just basically a side story to fit in there that expands with Jill and a couple other characters as well.
You know what'll really throw me off?
What's that?
If they... Damn, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. What'll throw me off is if they turn the new movie into a fucking game.
That's what they did. See, if you haven't seen Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, that's what they did. They literally took the first 2 games and they put them into the movie. They crunched them both into the movie. You got all the characters except for, well, I think they did have Barry in there, but you had, Chris, Claire, Jill, Leon, Chief Irons, you had Wesker, you had the Birkins in there. You had you had Ben, who was the guy in the cell. Ada didn't come in until like the post-credit scene, but you pretty much have all the characters from the first 2 games in there, and it's crunched together, and the stories are alternating back and forth. You got the story with the mansion, and you got the story with the police station, and they all come meeting up with each other and all. Even though the story, it's like it doesn't quite follow how the games were, but it's an homage.
I think that's because of copyright.
No, it's not. It's not copyright because it's Resident Evil. It's Resident Evil. It's not really copyright.
But I mean, they had to get. They couldn't cross something apparently to do something like that.
Well, they didn't want to make it too close to the games. I guess they just when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to the movies, they do change things up a little bit, but not too much. So it's not following.
I haven't seen the movie.
It's mixed. It's however you want to take it. Like a lot of people say it's garbage, and some people say it's good. I liked it for what it was. It could have been longer. They could have did a little bit more better with both sides of the story, or at least make them its own separate thing. they tried. They definitely tried. But I look at the new movie as an homage to the Resident Evil games, to the originals. That way, you know, when you watch the movie, I do say it makes you want to play the original games again.
It does. It really does. That's why I installed. That's why I bought them.
Yeah. It's pretty much an homage, you know. Like if you haven't played the originals and you watch this movie, and then you find out, oh, it's based on the original video games. Let me try that out, and it becomes something, you know, of an experience. So I did enjoy it. Like, I've seen all the Resident Evil movies. I love them all, regardless of how bad they were. Like, yes, you know, I've seen them and I do rewatch them. I will say, like, out of the storyline with Alice, I will say, like, Retribution is probably the lowest one. I don't know if y'all heard that one. It's probably the low. Retribution is the lowest graded one for me. Was Retribution. It was probably the weakest in the series for me, and then of course the final chapter, which they scrambled to finish up the story. It wasn't as bad as Retribution, but they just said, you know what, let's stop beating a dead horse. You know, like, the series is going downhill with the movies. Let's just fucking kill it off. You know, let's just make Alice is a clone. She's a clone, and it all goes back to the Red Queen and Wesker and this. I forgot how it ended. It was a little confusing, but it was a twist too to the whole franchise and shit. But it's almost like a big fuck you. But I'm like, you know, it's still a piece of entertainment. It's Resident Evil. I'm still gonna watch it. And then of course that's when they say, okay, we're gonna reboot Resident Evil movie. We're gonna go back to the basics. We're going to do a movie that's based off of the games. And then, of course, they were trying to sit there and say, oh, this new movie, it's going to scare the fuck out of you. It's going to do what the original Resident Evil should have fucking done, which it really didn't. It really didn't, because
it didn't give you that much jumps, but except for the part where it was dark and you're shooting the zombies, that was pretty much the only jump scare out of the whole entire thing. But
exactly.
The thing I kind of took away from the other movies that they made of the Resident Evil, it really didn't even match up, to be honest with you.
They're not supposed
to. It made really absolutely no sense. Compared to this one, the new one that came out is actually worth, like, if you play the game, you're right there in the game pretty much. Compared to the other videos, you're like, where the fuck's this guy tying in with Resident Evil? It looks like more of a Walking Dead kind of thing than a Resident Evil.
I was actually getting ready to say that when you look at the Resident Evil games versus the movies, think of it as like a universe in a sense. Like, look at The Walking Dead. Walking Dead has 3 or 4 different sub-series to it. You got the Walking Dead main story, which is on its final season. You got the Walking Dead. I forgot the subtitle for it. It's the one where
you got the Walking Dead Worlds now. You got
Fear the Walking Dead. Fear the Walking Dead. That's what it is. You got the Walking Dead. You got Fear the Walking Dead. You got the Walking Dead World Beyond. Yeah, there's 3 different series to the Walking Dead. And
but here's the thing though. Where's all this going to combine to make more sense? That's why people are like, I like the original Walking Dead more than what is the other shows, because the other shows aren't getting that much attention compared to the original. Because
I think
you got the big star Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the big one, you know. Unless they're gonna make a movie and make it all make sense.
See, what's happening is this is what they call the Walking Dead universe. It's not supposed to all really combine with each other, even though Fear the Walking Dead sort of does, because you got
it's the
character you got the character Morgan, who shifted pace from The Walking Dead over to Fear the Walking Dead, along with Negan's right hand man, the guy with the scarred face. He moves over there too. So it all takes place in the Walking Dead universe. It's just different people, different settings, and how they're dealing with it. So it's rather than taking new characters and adding them to the original Walking Dead series and focusing between it's already complicated enough when you add new characters to the series, and you gotta focus on backstories, and you gotta look at the backstories compared to what's going on now. So I think that's one reason why you got different sub-series, so they can focus something different and something new. That's what's going on with the Resident Evil movies, because it's like it's based off the video game, but they give it new characters, they give it a new life. It's like, okay, it's not focusing close to the original source material, but it's within that universe of Resident Evil. It's like anything can happen to anybody. It could be like, okay, you got on one side of Raccoon City, you got Chris, Claire, Leon, Jill, all of them fighting. And then on the other side of the city, you got Bill, Frank, Joe, Jim, Bob. They're sitting here trying to make their way out. So it's that's pretty much how it is. They could come up to each other and work as a team or whatever, or it could just be two separate things. That's pretty much what the movies are doing.
Let me ask you this. You remember when we both were watching the Netflix version of Resident Evil?
Yeah.
Would that be 3.5 going into 4?
No, that's a different story. That's a whole different story. That one has nothing to do with the games.
That one kind of has 4 mixed in there somewhere.
Well, there's CG movies, and they have the characters with them, but no, it doesn't mix in with the stories that are already out there with the games. It's a whole new story. The virus that they talk about in the movie, it could be the same virus from like maybe from 4 or a virus from 5 or whatever, but it doesn't really tie in. It's just a whole new story, new characters that they fight.
The president's dead in the 6.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, the movies are not meant to be like sequels or prequels to any of the game entries. They're their own existence. They have the characters from the games, but it's not meant as like a prequel or sequel or fill in to the series. It's basically its own thing. The movies are their own thing. They'll bring out like I said, it's CG, so they can bring in the voice actor for Leon or the voice actor for Claire, so they could do just this whole story, this new movie, this new series, whatever. Basically, the series is the next movie. That's all it is. The Infinite Darkness, 4 episodes. Each episode is a half hour long. That's basically a movie. Like, why not just make it a movie? It makes no sense.
That's what I didn't understand about that. I mean, it was pretty good. Don't get me wrong. It was a pretty good.
It was good. I liked it. Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I wish that'd be like a Resident Evil 10 or something, but I mean, first-person shooter, yeah, pretty cool. Going around the White House killing zombies, that'd be kind of badass. But talk about Walking Dead. I wish they would make a PS4, 5, and Xbox game of Walking Dead from the beginning all the way up to where it's at. Because they did have one. I know it's on VR, but they should just brought it out to console also.
I think with what they try with The Walking Dead, okay, you had Survival Instinct that came out in 360 and PS3. That was actually a prequel. That one, well, it wasn't really animated. It's a game, but it focused on the story of Daryl and Merle. This was the prequel to the series. You were playing as Daryl, and you and Merle are making your way, through the city and this and that. It's a first-person shooter. I enjoyed it. It wasn't that great, but I did enjoy it. I liked the story in it. It was pretty fun, and all the negative reviews that it got with it. And then they tried doing a Walking Dead game for PC, which I do have, but it's not that great. And I'm pretty sure if I try playing it now, the servers are probably no longer existent because nobody really plays it. So they already had quite a few games on console and PC that they've tried with, but nobody was really into them. And I think they were trying to do another one, but I haven't heard much about it since, unless they plan on it. But then you got the Telltale games, The Walking Dead, which is basically, your click and move type of games, those kind of things. They're interactive still, but it focuses more on the story than actual gameplay. Those are really good. Those are your animated ones. Those are pretty good. There's like 4 or 5 of them that follow the story of the young girl. I forgot what her fucking name is. All I remember is that the black guy Lee, he raises her in the first one. But those games right there themselves, they were pretty good. I played them and I enjoyed them. And I'm not sure if they'll ever make another one from Telltale. I think they're done with that story. But other than that, I think with The Walking Dead, people claim it's like beating a dead horse. You know, you're working off the original material. You can only go so far with it. It's like, what comes next? That's like with Resident Evil. It's like, what can they do next with the Resident Evil series that they haven't done? That's why you got this new story with Ethan that picks up, you know, with 7, with 8, and then, of course, with 9. And, of course, you bring back Chris Redfield. So I'm pretty sure they're going to explore more into Chris's story with RE9. That's supposed to be the last of that trilogy. And then after that, what could Capcom do with Resident Evil? Well, it's possible they can bring back Resident Evil Outbreak. They could do another story, and maybe they're thinking about doing another story. It is what it is. You know, Resident Evil is going to be that franchise that's going to be around for a good while. That's like with Silent Hill. Yeah. Silent Hill has been in production hell for so long. And when Hideo Kojima, when he left Konami, you know, of course, he's going to take that brand with him. They were working on a new Silent Hill, which, if you played the PT demo on PS4, that was originally, that was supposed to be a demo for Silent Hill. If you played the demo correctly and you got all the puzzle pieces and all that, and if you did the right combinations of going through this hall, this door, that, and that, you know, and you get a special ending where it's what's his name from Walking Dead? I can't even remember his fucking name now. I think I'm getting Alzheimer's, but he was supposed to be the main character for the new Silent Hill, and everybody was flipping shit like, holy shit, it's a new Silent Hill from Konami. But then all this stuff started going downhill when Hideo Kojima, he left Konami over their differences with Metal Gear Solid 5, and, you know, he left, so now it's like, okay, Silent Hill is scrapped, what do we do now? And then, of course, you know, the PT demo, that got scrapped, so they took that off the store. So the only way you could play PT demo is if you get a hack somewhere on PC, and I have the hack, I could play the PT demo on PC. Or if you still have the PT demo downloaded on your PS4 hard drive and you haven't deleted it, you're still in luck. Otherwise, you can't download it on PlayStation anymore.
But I mean, like you know how they did Doom? I mean, they really fucked that thing up big time. But I mean, Doom's a good game. We've all played the original PC versions, although I still love the PC versions. But
I don't think they fucked Doom up. I think they just basically took
the movie. They did, I think.
Well, yeah,
I think they really did.
Here's my opinion on the movie. Okay, so the 2004 theatrical, yeah. I think they tried to do a good job with it. Like they were basing it off of Doom 3, where you got this base on Mars that, well, they were researching into DNA. They were researching like chromosomes and shit like that. They found something that alters your chromosome, alters your DNA and all. Whereas with Doom 3, it was all about the portal to hell and shit like that. They didn't really even focus in on that. They just did something a little different. Now, like, to have an homage of certain enemies in there, like the zombie enemies, they had the imp creatures in there. You had the Pinky Monster, which was sort of there. But I think what killed the movie for me was The Rock's performance. You know, he was up and coming. He was beginning to star in a lot of these Hollywood movies. He wasn't really like big budget Fast and Furious just yet. You know, he had a few roles in his pocket.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Scorpion King. You know, he was, the CG for him in The Mummy Returns was shit, but then he does the Scorpion King, which was mediocre. It was mixed to good reviews. He had movies like Walking Tall. He had that one where he was.
That was actually not a bad movie.
I like Walking Tall. There was that movie where he was in there.
The first Scorpion King was good, but after they continued to franchise that, it kind of.
But yeah, with Doom, his performance in there, it was just so 80s cheesy. It was very cheesy. Like, I'm just looking at like, who the fuck did the script? Who did the dialogue for this character? Like, it was just it didn't it was just garbage. Like, for me, the only best performance in there was Carl Urban. And Carl Urban, he doesn't really get a lot of praise for the movies he does, but I find him to be a pretty decent action actor.
He's actually, I think he's in Star Trek movies now, but he's actually pretty decent in those. He's actually more decent in that than he was in freaking Doom.
Yeah, he was Dr. Bones McCoy. Yeah, he was McCoy in that. But Carl Urban, he did a really decent job in there. And my favorite part in that Doom,
wasn't he also he was also in Resident Evil?
No, he wasn't.
That wasn't him?
Nope, he wasn't. He wasn't in any of them. Nope, that wasn't him.
Oh,
he was not in any of those movies. He was in Dredd, the new Judge Dredd that came out.
Which one? The 2012 one or the old one?
The 2012 one. You don't recognize him because he wears the helmet the whole time, but he's Dredd. But the best part of that movie was the 5-minute scene that was in first person. I think that was done really well, and it did a pretty good homage to the game, where Carl Urban, you see in the first person perspective of him going through the space station, eliminating these creatures and shit. That was probably the best scene in the movie, but other than that, I would go back and rewatch it. I do rewatch it every now and then. It's still a decent movie, even though it is pretty badly made, especially when you got The Rock in it. But then they made a new one that came out 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's on it was
on
Netflix.
Yeah, Doom Annihilation. I can't.
I watched it.
I can't begin to emphasize how bad that movie was, in my opinion. Like, I watched it.
Yeah.
It was just horrible. Like, they say Doom 04 was bad. This one, like, the zombies were blue.
Okay.
The zombies were blue. Like, what the fuck?
But I mean, hey, at least this time they had imps. I mean, let's give them credit.
No, wait, that's what it was. The imps were blue. I'm sorry, it wasn't the zombies that were blue. It was the imps that were blue.
At least they made imps. Unlike the other one, you didn't even see one.
Yeah, I know, but it's like it was just so bad. I don't even remember much of it. I was like, it's like burned in the back of my brain. Like, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, I don't want to end up rewatching it to prove a point. Like, how bad was this movie?
Yeah, that would just make you lose. That's like you watching a Biden, like, union speech or whatever that's coming on the first and make you lose brain cells. But
Tim, what's your make on the Doom series?
Me or Tim?
Tim, is he even here?
Tim. I don't think he is. I think he lost signal.
No, I'm here. I was just listening.
No.
I can't say much on them because I've never played them. So.
Yeah. Have you seen the movies though?
I've seen part of the movie, but I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. You ain't missing much.
But yeah, speaking of The Rock, and I'm trying to circle right back around to what we were talking about with Call of Duty, but I know it's not rumors, but people were talking about wanting Rock to star in a Call of Duty movie. I'm like, no, please no. I'm like, no, please don't do a Call of Duty movie. Like,
that'll ruin the franchise.
No, because they said that The Rock is supposed to star in a video game based movie, but he wasn't.
I know Batista's supposed to do Gears of War.
Well, that's been the talk of the town for many years.
For a couple years.
Yeah, but yeah, the Rock, he came out and said that he was supposed to star in a video game related movie, but he didn't want to put it out there which one he was doing. And then you got people.
Not Halo. I
No,
can't wait to
no.
see that on Paramount. But
No, he's
please
you know,
don't
he's not on
do
Halo. He's not on Halo. I'm gonna definitely check that out when it comes out on Hulu. I can't wait for that either.
Hulu, it's gonna be on Paramount.
Or Paramount, whatever it is. Yeah, I got Paramount too, so I'm gonna watch that. It's another less than a month away. But yeah, with Call of Duty, swinging back around to Call of Duty. Now, Tim was talking earlier about how he has the game loaded on, you know, on his console, but he can't play the campaign. Here's why. So, Activision made it to where, since you have limited space on your game consoles, they take it upon themselves to say, okay, maybe you're more into playing the multiplayer. We'll just install the multiplayer portion for you. You can install the campaign at a later date. That way, it saves you space on your hard drive. See, that's what happened with me. Like, okay, take Modern Warfare for example.
That was the best when it first came out.
Yep.
Just itself.
So take Modern Warfare. You got the campaign, you got the multiplayer, and you got the zombie mode. All that together installed is, oh god,
100 gigs at least.
With all the map packs, from what I last saw, 220 gigs of space alone. 220 gigs for one game. That is ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But I mean, if they had an open world, it wouldn't be so damn bad. Like, you know, like Red Redemption.
It would still be the same. It would still be the same though. So each game, you got Modern Warfare, you got Black Ops Cold War, you got Vanguard, then you've got Warzone. Even if you don't want Warzone, Warzone is still somewhat in there, part of it. So you got 4 games in one, and they got this. I don't even know. They got this interface where no matter which game you load up, you still get this interface where you get to choose between Cold War, Vanguard, Warzone, Modern Warfare. You get to select between each of them. Now, that's all combined. I'm not talking about like Captain Planet combined bullshit, you know? I'm talking about like this motherfucker is so fucking big. Combined, you got a terabyte of space right there for a franchise. 4 games. That's a terabyte of space.
You might want to add 2024 to that list next.
Well, that is if they decide to add it to that. If they decide to go that route with that. But
you know they will.
You got a terabyte of space for Call of Duty right there. So they understand, yeah, there's other games you want to play as well. So here's what we'll do. We'll make it to where each game you can separately install or uninstall the campaign, the zombie mode, or the multiplayer. So that's pretty much what it is. So you got the game, Tim. You got the whole game. You got to go into your system files where that game is at, and you got to manually install the campaign. So it'll install the multiplayer for you, which is usually, you know, a top thing for a lot of people play. But you got to install manually the campaign, which is a pain in the ass. You can uninstall it and you can reinstall it. And that's a pain in the ass. It's like rather than install the entire game itself, they only install certain parts of it. So let's say you buy the game. Okay, in my case, Modern Warfare. I beat Modern Warfare. I got pretty much all the achievements open on the game. There's really nothing else I could do with the campaign. I just play the multiplayer. So what if I don't play the campaign anymore, even though I still own it? Well, to save space, I can uninstall the campaign if I'm not playing it, but I can still keep the multiplayer. So if you enjoy the multiplayer on Modern Warfare, you can still keep that. You could just uninstall the campaign. But if you delete
the whole game, it deletes everything.
Well, it deletes the whole game off of there. It's still yours. If you get it digital or whatever, no matter what, you know, you still get the save file that stays on your console and all. Yep. But you can still install it at a later date. You know, it's just, you know, you can either uninstall the whole game to save space, or you can uninstall pieces of the game to save space. So to answer your question to earlier, Tim, yes, you still have the campaign. You just got to go in to where the game is installed. I think you got to go into
you gotta click a checkbox or whatever to install it.
Yeah, even on
Actually, no, you gotta go to the place that you gotta go to the store to do that. Actually,
no, actually, if you pull up the interface for Call of Duty and you highlight campaign and it says uninstall, just click on that and it'll install it right there for you. It'll take a while, but you'll still be able to install it. Halo Infinite has the same issue too. Like, okay, Halo's multiplayer was the first thing to be released back in November or December. No, it was November. I'm sorry, because the campaign came out December 8th, I think it was. So the multiplayer came out 3 weeks before the campaign did. So you could download from Game Pass the multiplayer, which is what I started playing on. And then when the campaign came out, and you either bought it or you got it through Game Pass, and you still had to install the campaign. So even though you own it, you still have to install that portion to it. So I think that's where games now that are going in that route, where they know you're limited on space. They know you're playing a lot of games, so they figure, okay, you get a typical game that's campaign and multiplayer related. Let's say you play through the campaign first, you beat the campaign, you're done, you loved it, yay, yippee, whatever, you got everything you could. You just want to focus on the multiplayer now. All you got to do is uninstall the campaign, and you freed up, God, what, 20, 30 gigs of space? Or in my case, since I have the Series X, you got to download an upgrade for the Series X or S that is another 20 or 30 gigs to pretty much take advantage of the console's hardware, be able to load up faster, and no loaded screens. The load screens are cut in half. I can quick resume between both games or different games if I want to. All that fucking good shit, So I would recommend, like, when it comes to that, if your Xbox One X or S is still good, stick with that. The series consoles is not for everybody unless you want to take advantage of the 4K gaming and quick resume and quick load and all that shit. Because that kind of stuff you can't really opt out of. I've emphasized it so many times on here. You can't opt out of those upgrades. They force you to download that version because those upgrade options, those settings, they're installed in the BIOS of the console. So no matter what, you're stuck with getting that upgrade no matter what. But if you run out of space, don't worry. You can still plug in an external hard drive that's 3.0, and you could transfer that game to the hard drive as storage, and then you can just transfer it back later on. That way, you're not worried about having to download it over your internet, which takes a lot longer because it's quicker to transfer a game back and forth in a fraction of that time. But that is pretty much it for Call of Duty with that. I mean, is there anything else that you needed to ask about Call of Duty 10 before we move on?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, so now that you know, you can go and play the campaign. All you got to do is just install it. That's all you got to do. Let's see. So we were talking mostly about video games. A whole
bunch of games mixed in one.
Yeah, so let me do a quick review on the history of video games. Like, okay, the history of video games began in the 1950s and the 1960s as computer scientists began designing simple games and simulations on mainframe computers. These were these big supercomputers back in the day. These were computers that were like fucking 10 feet tall. Shit. Well, this is way before Bill Gates, though. Bill Gates is like late 70s, early 80s. But we'll get to that, too. So with MIT's Space War was the very first video game that was played on a PC that was in, like a science lab or whatever. These were big ass. They were just a little bit bigger than those arcade cabinets you would see in the 80s and the 90s. They had one round screen and they had a couple controls on it. And it pretty much played like Asteroids, I think it did, And then let's see.
And Pong, I think it was too.
Yeah. So Space War came in 1962 as one of the first such games to be played on a video display. the early 1970s brought the first consumer-ready video game hardware, the first home video game console. Now, everybody will say, was the Atari 2600? You're wrong. It was the Magnavox Odyssey. Let's see. The Magnavox Odyssey released in North America September 1972. So imagine
how much that thing is worth now.
Well, let's see. Introductory price at the time was $99.95. You got to remember, back in 1972, people weren't making $10, $12, $13, $14 an hour. They were making...
They're making about 5 or 6.
30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents. They were making maybe close to $1 back in 1972. That's a lot.
No, I'd say a little higher than that. Probably about $5 or $6.
Let's see. What was minimum wage in 1972?
Now, the 40s and all that, I can agree with you on.
You're way off. You're way off. Back in 1972, the U.S. minimum wage was $1.60. $1.60. Imagine making $1.60 back then. This is equivalent. This is equivalent to $9.60 in 2018. So yeah,
wow.
So yeah, you're making $1.60 in 1962, working your ass off in the factories and shit. There's a little bit of history for you. So yeah, back then that was a lot of money to save up. You know, like back then this console was $100. Now equivalent to 2020. In 2020, this console with inflation would be $618 for a console that doesn't come with a regular game cartridge like a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo has. They had these little carts. There's these little electronic carts. Like, okay, if you take a NES cartridge right now and you pop that open and you got that little cart in there, that's pretty much what those things were back in, 1972.
Pretty much a motherboard.
That's all it was. It was a motherboard. And they were labeled card 1, card 2, card 3. And that's what powered this console. You plug it into it, and the power came on the TV, and all you had was these 2 white dots and a blue screen. So this console relied... Yeah.
I gotta go for a little bit, but if you guys are still on, I'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be here for a little bit, man. Yeah, if you come back in, just hop on in.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, back then, you had a console that you plugged these little motherboard cards into, and it powered it on. And you had these 2 little white dots. Now, the console came with 2 controllers that were hooked to the console, and they're these white boxes. That's all they were. They're just white boxes that had 1 button for reset on the top, and you had 2 knobs on the side. Wonder if I could put that thing in the Discord. Because I don't know if you've ever.
You can probably share a picture of it in Discord, maybe.
All right, let's see. This is the controller. Let me see if I can get a picture of the console itself. Looks like a fucking spaceship. Let's see. Let's upload. There we go.
I mean, you're thinking about the 70s and all that. So 70s, you started getting to that rock and roll era kind of thing too.
Yeah, this was the very first game console to come out, September 1972. That's what people were playing with. Now these consoles, when this one came out, and here's a picture of the cart. Let me put that in there too.
Well, let's go to the history. Let's also talk a little bit about the history of the 72. What happened? You had we're
not getting into politics and all. This is just straight up, video games. Well, we can mention that next time.
I'm wondering if it all came from China.
Probably. Hold on, let me see. Okay, Magnavox Odyssey. Let's see. Okay, it did release in North America, released in the UK in 74, released in Europe in 74. This hardware was designed by a small team led by Ralph Baer. Ralph Baer, he was like the great granddaddy of video games. He passed away in 2014. This guy, he is considered to be the father of video games due to his many contributions to games and helped spark the video game industry in the latter half of the 20th century. Actually, in 2006, I remember this. In 2006, he was awarded the National Medal of Technology for his groundbreaking and pioneering creation, development, and commercialization of interactive video games, which spawned related uses, applications, and mega industries in both the entertainment and education realms. He was.
How much is that guy worth?
He ain't worth anything
That guy's gotta
now.
be worth billions.
He died in 2014.
Yeah, but I'm talking about how much was his net worth around 2014? Though it had to be in the billions.
You would imagine he was this guy. He was born in 1922, right? He was living with a Jewish family. He was part of a Jewish family living in Germany. So this was
wow.
You got to figure this is probably one of the guys that got lucky during World War II who got out of there. Yeah, his family got out of there. Yeah, his inventions alone, like with everything that he's done, it was just phenomenal. He was given the National Medal of Technology in 2006, received it from George W. Bush himself.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
I'm gonna put a picture of him in the Discord.
Yeah, but that guy's gotta be worth billions. I mean, like even today's technology and all that, he's still. Even with that, okay, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be like an asshole or anything, but
yeah.
Even if he's dead, his children, if his children are older now, they're still getting assets of the money to this day.
Oh
To
yeah.
his children, at least. I mean, think about it. You're getting billions upon billions of dollars for an invention you came up with. Like, what the hell? It's like, golly, if we came up with something back in that time. Like, hell yeah, man, we came up with the first cell phones. Imagine if you made a cell phone that day.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Well, you got to figure his technology is what evolved into what we use today. And you mentioned cell phones. Exactly. Imagine, like, I know technology evolves itself over, a span of every 5-10 years. But if we didn't have somebody of his expertise doing things like this, we wouldn't have cell phones today. I mean, we would have computers, but imagine how they would look and how we'd be able to interact with that stuff. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about Xbox games. We wouldn't be talking about PlayStation or Nintendo without this guy and his brilliance. This is the father of video games. This is the guy that invented video games in 1972. That's why I say, hey, 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of video game consoles in homes. Family-owned.
Video games are not even that old. If you really think about it, 1972 to 2072 be 100 years old.
Well, you're 1970. Wait, mention that again.
Think about it. Okay, 1972 to 2072.
Oh yeah, 100. Yeah.
Old.
Yeah, me and you, we probably won't even be around to 2072. Yeah, but yeah,
we'll be up there in our 90s. At least.
If we make it. But you figure video games are half a century old right now. And technically, like I mentioned, the very first video game was played in a lab on a supercomputer back in the 50s. So technically, video games have been around for over 50 years. We're talking actually 72 years. About 72 years since the very first video game was implemented on a computer. But when it comes to at-home gaming, 50 years. Half a century we've been playing video games in the comfort of our home on a television, All because of this dude, his inventions. Let me read up on this. Baer is considered to have been the inventor of video games, specifically the concept of the home video game console. In 1966, while an employee at Sanders Associates, Baer started to explore the possibility of playing games on television screens. He first got the idea while working at L'Oreal in 1951, another electronics company. However, they wanted nothing to do with it at the time. In an interview he did in 2007, he said that he recognized that the price reduction of owning a television set at the time has opened a large potential market for other applications, considering that various military groups had identified ways of using televisions for their purpose. Upon coming up with the idea of creating a game using a television screen, he wrote a 4-page proposal with which he was able to convince one of his supervisors to allow him to proceed. He was given at the time $2,500 and the time of 2 other engineers, Bill Harrison and Bill Rush. They developed the brown box console, so named because it was the brown type, in which they wrapped the unit to simulate wood veneer. At the time, that's why they call it like the wood grain age. When you look at the Magnavox Odyssey, it's very wood grain. That's like the wood grain age. Like back in the 70s, everything was wood. You had wooden floors or wooden walls or something like that. So they base it around that, I guess. Baer recounted that that in an early meeting with the patent examiner and his attorney to patent one of the prototypes, he had set up the prototype on a television in the examiner's office, and within 15 minutes, every examiner on the floor of that building was in the office wanting to play the game. The brown box was ultimately patented on April 17th, 1973, given the U.S. patent number 3728480, sounds like a prison number, and became jointly owned by Ralph Baer and BAE Systems. Baer began seeking a buyer for the system, turning to various television manufacturers who did not see interest in the unit. In 1971, it was licensed to Magnavox, and after being renamed the Magnavox Odyssey, the console was released to the public May 1972. For a time, it was Sander's most profitable line, selling over 340,000 units. Though many of the company looked down on game development, Baer is credited for creating the first light gun and game for home television use, sold grouped with the game expansion pack for the Odyssey and collectively known as the Shooting Gallery. The light gun itself was the first peripheral for the video game console. Now, I watch a lot of Angry Video Game Nerd on YouTube, and he's already did a review on the Magnavox Odyssey. There was a light gun that came with it. I shit you not. Let me look this up. You're gonna be fucking shocked as shit to see this. Light gun for Magna. If I could spell Odyssey, here we go. If I could spell Odyssey, I could never really spell that. All right, you're gonna be astounded when you see this shit. I'll put this in Discord. Oh shit, that ain't even gonna fucking fuck. Let me get another picture. This thing, I swear to you, Discord is like not uploading pictures lately for whatever reason. I do not know why. All right, where's it at here? Christ, another one. What the fuck, man?
Signal.
No, it ain't the Signal. It's Discord. Discord, for whatever reason, like I could upload the pictures that I uploaded, but for whatever reason, it's not uploading. Oh, Jesus Christ, do I really gotta fucking take a picture of the goddamn thing with my phone? Alright, hold on a second. Let me do this. Okay. I'll upload it this way then. God damn it. I'll use the fucking mobile app. Discord is big bitch on the internet today, I swear to God. Especially on PC. Alright. Come on. Goddamn 4G LTE fucking signal. It's a 5 megabyte picture. Like how big is that? All right, there's the gun. That's what the gun looks like back in the day. Tell me that shit doesn't look real.
Oh,
Tell me this fucking shit don't look real.
damn.
Yeah.
They want to talk about guns back in today's day. Good lord.
Yeah, that looked like an actual fucking shotgun back in the day with a wire attached to it. And it's like,
Can you imagine shooting to the screen like that?
Imagine buying one of those and just cutting the cable off and walking into a fucking store with it. Like, you could imagine how many people you would scare the shit out of holding something like that in a fucking store. Like, goddamn, like that. Dude, this dude had the fucking balls to release something like that to the public. But yeah, that was one of the very first light gun consoles right there. If anybody's ever wondered, like, if you look at the NES console with the light gun, like, no, that was not the first one to have the light gun. The Odyssey was, and this motherfucker, it was like balls to the wall. This thing is a literal shotgun. And that little pump handle, that actually does pump a little bit, you know, but don't worry, it doesn't shoot any actual bullets unless somebody has managed to tweak it up here nowadays. But yeah,
I'd be surprised.
Yeah. So the Magnavox Odyssey was the first game console to implement light gun experience. So that was the very first to do that. Let's see, where did I leave off at? Okay. The success of the Odyssey led to competition from other companies, in particular Atari, led by Nolan Bushnell, which is a popular name. You know, when you hear Nolan Bushnell, if you're into video games, oh yeah, Atari 2600, you know, he really pushed it out there. Bushnell, he saw Baer's success with the devices. He saw his successful devices and was able to create the first arcade machine in 1972 based off of Baer's table tennis idea, resulting in what? Pong. Everybody's played Pong. The success was very limited though due to high price and confusing advertising. Sanders and Magnavox successfully sued Atari, among numerous others, for patent infringement over Baer's original idea, and Bushnell opted to settle and negotiated for a license Baer's patents, allowing him to continue Atari developments in video games. Bushnell led Atari forward to become the leader in both home and arcade video games. This led to a lengthy conflict between Baer and Bushnell over who was the true father of video games. Baer was willing to concede this to Bushnell, though noted to Bushnell that Bushnell has been telling the same nonsensical story for 40 years, which is true. When you look into the history of video games, Bushnell will he'll usually take credit for, like, oh, I was the big video game inventor of the 1970s. Like, no, you just copied what this other guy did, and then you took credit for it. That's all it was. Baer would help both Magnavox and later Coleco to develop competitive units to Atari's products, including the Odyssey 100 and the Odyssey. Ultimately, the industry came to name Baer as the father of the home video game consoles, while crediting Bushnell for creating the concept of the arcade machine. Upon Baer's death, Bushnell stated that Baer's contributions to the rise of video games should not be forgotten. Baer is also credited for co-developing 3 popular electronics. Baer, along with Howard Morrison, developed... Oh, I know you probably played this back in the day. Remember that game Simon with those 4 colored buttons? Yep. He's responsible for that, developed that. And its sequel, Super Simon from Milton Bradley, electronic pattern matching games that were immensely popular throughout the late 90s. The U.S. patent for Simon was attained in 1980 by the patent counsel for Marvin Glass and Associates, Robert Schneider, a managing partner of the firm Mason, whatever the fuck, they look like fucking Jewish names to me. Schneider is currently co-chair of the intellectual property department of Taft. Baer also developed similar pattern matching games like Maniac for the Ideal Toy Company on his own. Though the game was not as popular as Simon, Baer considered that Maniac was really hard to play and thus not as popular as his earlier game. That's funny because there's a picture and a video out there of him playing one of his own video game patents, and he kind of, I don't know, what'd you say, rage quit? He kind of rage quit over it and shit. He's like, nope, I'm done with this game. But yeah, this one dude, who he was born in Germany, and his family moved over here. I think they moved over here right around when World War II hit, or before that, or something. I forgot what it was. But yeah, this dude, he basically invented video game consoles, the first at-home video game console. And he finally got the recognition for it, like I said, back in 2006. This dude, he did a lot. Without this guy, we wouldn't have video game consoles in our homes. We wouldn't even have the first video game arcade machines out there because of this dude. Like I said, Nolan Bushnell, who was working for Atari at the time. This dude, he took this idea. And of course, like I read, him and Ralph Baer, they butted heads over, who, buying the patent and using the patent to, bring new life to the video games. Like, okay, you have a console that you can use at home. Now, what the Odyssey did, it came packaged with a lot of shit. It came packaged with TV overlays. And these overlays, they were the games themselves. You had the little cartridges that you put into the console, and that you would have two dots. It all revolved around how these two dots were utilized, and to use those two dots with two controllers that were attached to this console, and in order to play the games, the cartridges, you put the cartridge in, it powers it up. Then you put the TV overlay over the TV. It was a plastic overlay, and you use the two dots. Player 1, player 2 would have to do certain objectives, do this, do that, whatever. You had to have a lot of imagination back in 1972 to play something like this. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's boring pretty much most of the times, and
yeah,
things weren't as of what they are today. So you kind of figure things have grown over the years of making things, and like, oh man, the imaginations I come up with, la di da da, and boom.
Exactly. Because you figure, Ralph Baer, he blew the door open, to where, okay, now you got the first video game console at home. People are interacting with it. So Bushnell, he took that idea and he's like, okay, let me take your patent and do something with it. You got two dots, right? Let me do something with those two dots. So he creates the first arcade cabinets for Pong, where you got these two lines. Of course, everybody's played Pong. You bat this dot back and forth, for points and shit. And then, of course, there's like so many companies out there at the time that created their own little video game at-home game consoles that utilized his idea of Pong. There was like so many Pong consoles that came out. Let me look up a list of Pong consoles, and there's so many of them. Let's see, retro console. Holy shit. Oh wow. Well, there's so many of them.
There's gonna be so many of them. I don't think. I mean, how many is there in total as of what you're looked up so far?
Let me see here.
They should just give you a number. How many is out in the world? Pretty simple number there.
Well, it's saying there's 20 items here for what I'm looking at, but I don't think there's 20 of them. Let me see. How many Pong consoles were released? Let's see.
I put them in existence.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to look up the whole history of Pong consoles. Like, I don't want to bore somebody. Holy, yeah. It looks like, let's see, these are Atari related. So there are Atari Pong, but that's Atari though. Like, I don't think Atari made all these consoles. Let's see, Gamester. Oh, I know this guy. He's a video game reviewer. Gamester. Okay, there's the very first arcade cabinet. Okay, let me see if I can put a picture of that. I wonder if it'll let me put that in Discord. Discord, are you being a bitch today?
Probably.
Nope, it's let me. That's the very first arcade, Pong arcade machine that came out. That was the one that Bushnell made back in 1972, 73, and all that. All right, let's see.
Mm.
All I want is just a straight number. That's all I want.
Say, put on there how many Atari consoles exist today.
Well, that's Atari. I'm looking at Pong right now.
Or not, Pong consoles exist.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, come on, damn it. How many Pong consoles exist? Not exits, god damn it. Exist.
Oh, Lord.
Let's see. How many Pong consoles are there? Can I get a simple, straight answer? Oh my god, now it's talking about. Let's see. Including Pong Atari, there are 10 original gaming consoles that were made by Atari.
Okay, so
Well, that
pretty much.
All right, I'm going to say originally there was like 20 of them. Okay, there's 20 of them, and apparently they were all made, well, most of them were made by Atari. But there are other consoles.
I'm going to say 19 plus Atari.
Well, yeah. Oh, Tim's got one right there. Yeah, that's one of the ones right there, Tim. Yeah, that little Pong right there. And they were basic little consoles that had two knobs on them for player 1 and player 2. But they evolved as well. Like, if you look up Angry Video Game Nerd, and he did a whole video on Pong consoles, and he was reviewing so many of them. They were different shapes and sizes. There was even one or two of them, or quite a few of them, that were made under Magnavox that were released. So between Atari and Magnavox, they were releasing a lot of different consoles back and forth. So they were utilizing Bushnell's idea, because Bushnell basically took his idea off of Ralph Baer, using his patent. I was like, okay, Pong is the next hip video game right there, right? So over a span of 5 or 6 years, you had all these Pong consoles, and you still had more coming out over that. Yeah, that was the one prototype, Tim, that Ralph Baer used, was just 2 controllers. That's all it was. It was 2 controllers hooked up to something, and you had a vertical and a horizontal switch. That's basically what he was using. That's basically what Pong was back in the day. It was like, how many companies can get into the market, the video game market, to market Pong, to bring Pong to, your home television set. It's like, you had some knockoffs, you had some poor man's version of Pong. That's what AVGN would call some of them. Your poor man's version of Pong. Certain ones that came out. So it's like, how many times can you market the same game? And then, of course, let's see. Where was I looking at with Atari Inc. here? Here we go. So Atari was founded 49 years ago, June 27, 1972. So Atari has been in the game for nearly 50 years. 50 years come this June. And it was founded by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. Let's see, defunctioned in 1992, 29 years ago. So Atari hasn't made a game console in almost 30 years. But they've been around for almost 50 years. Holy shit. Atari has a subsidiary of Chuck E. Cheese from 1977 to 1978. So Atari was so Chuck E. Cheese was a subsidiary of Atari. That's interesting. So let's see. Atari Inc. was an American video game developer and home computer company founded in 1972. Atari was responsible for the formation of the video arcade and the modern video game industry. Based primarily around Sunnyvale, California area in the center of Silicon Valley, the company was initially formed to build arcade games, launching the Pong machine, or the Pong arcade cabinet, in 1972. As computer technology matured at low-cost microprocessors at the time, Atari ventured into the consumer market first with dedicated home versions of Pong and other arcade successors around 1975, and into programmable consoles using game cartridges with the Atari Video Computer System, or the Atari VCS, or later branded as the Atari 2600 in 1977. So there's a little piece of trivia for you guys out there. The Atari 2600 was originally called the VCS. Now, if you look today, there is an indie company, an indie gaming company, that it's already out. It's already out. It's expensive. It's like $400 or $500. It's the Atari VCS. So they took the old name Atari VCS and they brought new life to it. I'm gonna find a picture of that and put it in the Discord what it looks like. Because they're pretty much trying to re-revolutionize the Atari for the modern age, but not a lot of people are getting it, because for various reasons. But here we fucking go with this shit again. I gotta get my phone. I swear, Discord on PC is big bitch on internet. I swear to God, it's like half the time you can upload pictures to the PC, other times you can't. I don't know what the hell's going on with Discord, but this is a picture of what the VCS looks right now. It's got the like one of the old school Atari 2600 controllers, with the one button and the joystick, and then of course you got the regular control pad right there, which goes along with it. So the VCS is a modern console. It kind of looks like the 2600 in a way, if it had the shield from the Batman Batmobile from 1989. That's basically what it is. Let's see. From 1978 to 82, Atari continued to expand at a great pace and was the leading company in the growing video game industry. Its arcade games, such as Asteroids, helped to usher in the golden age of arcade games from 79 to 83, with the arcade conversion of Taito's Space Invaders for the VCS became the console's system seller and killer application. Atari's success brought new console manufacturers to the market, including Mattel Electronics and Coleco, as well as the creation of third-party developers such as Activision and iMagic. So today, Activision, what does Activision release nowadays when it comes to games? What is the very first name that comes to your mind when you hear Activision?
I don't know. There's so many titles.
We were just talking about it.
Oh yeah, of course. Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty distributes. Call of Duty. Activision distributes Call of Duty. Now, they didn't make the game. They had another company make the game, but they distribute it. So yeah, Activision is one of those companies that was formed under Atari, of course, third party. But then you got Mattel Electronics and Coleco. When you look at those two names, was it the ColecoVision and the Intellivision, which were kind of the competitors back in the day to Atari. And we'll get into those in a little bit too. Facing new competition heading into 1982, Atari made a number of poor decisions to try to maintain their leadership position. These decisions resulted in overproduction of units and games that did not meet sales expectations and eroded consumer confidence in Atari. Atari had also ventured into the home computer market with their first 8-bit computers, but their products did not fare as well as their competitors. The once profitable Atari began a string of quarters of losses throughout 1983, with the company losing more than $530 million over 1983. Kasser resigned as CEO in mid-83 and mounting losses, and was replaced by James Morgan, who instituted a number of cost-cutting procedures to turn Atari around, including a large number of layoffs. However, Atari's financial hardships had already reverberated through the industry, leading to... Now, people will always look down and say that when you hear about the video game crash of 1983, they hear E.T., games like E.T., Pac-Man for the Atari 2600, and a lot of other games. They look at those games like that's what caused the video game crash of 1983. No, it's not. You're way off. What I'm reading here is what led up to the 1983 video game crash that devastated the video game market in the United States. So, with Atari thinking that they were on top of the world, kings of the world, they're like, okay, let's overproduce units and games, which did not meet, like I said, did not meet sales expectations. So, I stated this a couple years ago on the show when it came to E.T. Now, when that game was made, when that game was put in production, the movie was set to come out Christmas of that year. As Steven Spielberg was looking into, hey, let's make a video game for the movie, since video games seem to be the top target for kids and adults alike. So we got a movie coming out. So, of course, he either approached them or he was approached with an idea. Let's make a game based off the movie for the movie, but let's have it released around the time that the movie comes out, which was in I think a 2 or 3 month period. So these game developers, they had 2 or 3 months to crunch their time in and make this game, which when you look at the game today, a lot of people say it's incomplete or something's missing or it's broken or whatever. E.T. is a misunderstood video game. It's random when you play it. It's randomized. It's very hard. Think of E.T. as like Dark Souls for the 2600. It's hard. It takes a lot of trial and error, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there who have put patience into this game and actually played and beat it. It is beatable, but people look at it as like one of the worst video games of all time, and they say that it led to the video game crash in 1983. What led to the crash of 83 was not only were games being rushed, and they were being rushed when they were being made and produced and all, but there was a large quantity of these games that were made. So you had video games that were being purchased at the time. Let's say mom and dad buy a game at $60 back then. Now, mind you, games were pretty expensive too back in the day, like they are today. Games will always be and have always been $40, $50, $60. Sometimes they were even $70. So it was very rare for mom and dad to go out and buy a video game back then. So you would buy a copy of E.T. You take it home, you play it, you don't like it, it's garbage, there's something wrong with it, whatever. You take it back to the store, you get your money back for it. Games were being returned constantly. They weren't what they originally were supposed to be or what expectations were. So stores were getting returns after returns on video game sales. So there was a lot of money that Atari was losing out on. When you got a company like that thinks they're so far into, they're the top kings of the video game market, they over mass produce, the units of the consoles and the units of the games. And it wasn't just E.T. There were several other games out there that were being mass produced and they were being mass returned. So what did they do with all these games? And it was rumored for so many years until it was finally uncovered back in 2013. Yeah, it was 2013 when it was uncovered. They took a lot of these games that were returns that they didn't have sales for. They took them to a desert out in New Mexico and they buried them in the landfill. They buried, and it wasn't just the video game consoles themselves. There may have been units that they couldn't sell along with a bunch of other stuff. They buried the stuff out in the desert in a landfill. And that was the biggest rumor of all for about 30 years. And then in 2013, there was a group of people that came out. I'll give you the location in a second, Tim. There was a group of people that came out and they heard the rumor and they met up at this place for days. They were out there and they were digging in the landfill. I think there's even a documentary on it. They were digging until somebody came across a copy of E.T. buried under there. So the rumors were true. They started digging more and more. And they started finding boxes and game carts in the landfill. And it was a very phenomenal day in video game history. It's like, oh my God, the rumors were true. So let's see, where was the landfill where Atari buried their games? It was in New Mexico. Okay, so when Electronics Pioneer Atari rushed a game based on a 1982 Hollywood blockbuster to market for its then dominant home consoles, it was a flop. Now, like I said, there's a lot of articles that will state that E.T. was at fault. That wasn't the only game that was at fault. Compounded by the fact that the infant industry was hitting the first slump at a time, so Atari literally buried the project, dumping truckloads of unsold games in a desert landfill in New Mexico. Okay, all right, I may have been way off. Okay, I was off on the year. It wasn't 2013, it was 2014. I'm going to put this link right here in the Discord. Found Atari's E.T. games dug up in a New Mexico landfill after 31 years hidden in the wake of one of the worst video game failures in history. Thousands of E.T. and other Atari games were uncovered Saturday. The find ended the mystique of the great industry legend. This is in Alamogordo, New Mexico. That's right. That name sounds familiar now, too.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, Alamogordo. The challenge was clear. Even if thousands or perhaps millions of Atari ET games were buried in an old landfill here, that meant Joe Lewandowski, I guess that's his name, I don't know, Polish name, would have to dig the right 400 square foot hole in a 300-acre dump to find them. There would be no second chance, but this was the garbage guru. The challenge was no match for him. That's why at 12:45 p.m. local time Saturday, film director Zach Penn walked up to the microphone on the other side of the orange trash fence from more than 100 video game fans, reporters, and others, and announced that we found something. After 31 years, the mystery of what happened to the hidden ET games was over. They have uncovered a shit ton of... Let me see if I can find... Okay, this is a picture. Can I save it? It's going to save as a web link, but it's in the website. You know, you can see these workers that are, you know, they're hard at work digging, looking for this shit, and they uncovered a lot of things. Let's see. Reinhardt said that the job had been weird, excavation in a fishbowl like golf at the Masters, but he said he and his team of volunteers had treated the job like any other, taking notes, photography, video, and audio as they worked. Things began to go well for them as they went deeper. They found newspapers from 1983 just above where the games were finally discovered. You couldn't ask for better context. To get the date right above what you're digging is kind of a holy grail for archaeologists. So that was truly something. You got to think, 8 years ago, it was finally uncovered and discovered that video games, you know, that were once said to be buried out in the desert were finally discovered. You know, that was one of the best moments in video game history right there, to find all of that. And of course, you know, let's go back to Atari. Warner Communications broke up Atari in July of 1984, selling the home console and computer division to Jack Tramiel, who then renamed his company Atari Corporation. Atari Inc. Was renamed to Atari Games after the sale. In 1985, the company was renamed again to Atari Holdings after its games division was sold to Namco. Namco is a subsidiary to Atari, of course. Let's see. Looking at the video game Crash, it was a large scale.
Well, hey,
yeah, go ahead.
I gotta hop off here. I gotta get some things done real quick before supper's done. So.
Oh yeah, go ahead and say goodbyes, man. I'm gonna finish up here for a little bit too.
Alright, well, everybody, hope you enjoyed. This is my man Mike here. Subscribe, like, and also hit that little ring bell if you want to hear more content of this kind of stuff on the YouTubers, and also follow us on Twitch. And I shall catch y'all on the flip.
All right, see you later, man.
All right, brother. Later.
All right, so going more into the video game crash here of 1983. It was a large-scale recession in the video game industry that occurred from 83 to 85, primarily in the U.S. The crash was attributed to several factors, including market saturation and the number of game consoles and available games, many of which were of poor quality, as well as waning interest in console games in favor of personal computers. So even back then, people were looking more into getting a personal computer because the first computers that came out back in the day were Apple computers. Apple computers were dominant. You know, the Apple I don't even remember what numbers they were, but I think they went off of numbers or whatever. But they were like the very first Apple computers that came out. And then there was computers evolved in the 1980s from the 70s, personal home computers. And, you know, they came out, they were starting to dominate the market right there as well. You know, home computers like, what the fuck was it? I'll be getting into it here pretty soon here. I can't remember. Commodore. That's what I'm thinking of. I can't even think today. Commodore computers were becoming a big thing alongside the Apple computers in the 1980s. More people were going toward, you know, computer systems because computers were doing more than what game consoles were at the time. Plus, like I said, when you got a company that's producing more of a product that's not making any sales or making much sales as you wanted it to, of course you're going to have some backlash. You're going to have a lot of, you know, financial failures, and you got to learn to take that hit. You got to take that hit hard, but you got to take it. So what did Atari do? Like I said, they buried all this shit out in the desert. You know, it's like, oh, let's just bury it. We'll file for bankruptcy, whatever we want to do, whatever, you know. So the crash abruptly ended what retrospectively considered the second generation of the console video gaming in North America. To the lesser extent, the arcade market also weakened as the golden age of arcade video games came to an end as well. So that's why you didn't see too many arcade games around that time. They were popping up left and right in the early 80s. You know, you had arcade, you know, places you would go. You had arcade, what the fuck would they, I can't even fucking think. You would go to like a lot of these game places. You would play, you know, games on the arcade cabinets and shit, you know, pop a quarter in to play Pong or something, you know. Video game outlets, whatever the fuck they call them, arcades. Arcades, that's what it was. Yeah, video game arcades, that's what it was. Lasting about 2 years, the crash shook a then booming video game industry and led to bankruptcy of several companies producing home computers and video game consoles in the region. Analysts at the time expressed doubts about the long-term viability of video game consoles and software. The North American video game console industry recovered a few years later, mostly due to widespread success of Nintendo's Western branding for its Famicom console, the Nintendo Entertainment System, which released nationally in 1985. The NES was designed to avoid the missteps that caused the 1983 crash and the stigma associated with video games at the time. So you figured, you know, Atari, they flooded the market. You know, they came in. It wasn't even the very first home system for swapping game cartridges, but in the early 80s, it was the most popular second generation console by a wide margin. You know, of course, the 2600, it was launched in 77, just ahead of the collapse of the market for Pong console clones. And there was many console clones as well that came out. Like I said earlier, Pong was very popular, and there was many consoles. many companies that were producing a Pong console one right after the other. The Atari VCS, which is, the 2600, experienced the modest sales for the first few years. In 1980, Atari's licensed version of Space Invaders became the console's killer application, and the game was the first title to sell more than 1 million copies. See, Atari, it wasn't the first console to implement cartridges, but it revolutionized the graphics. It revolutionized a game console that utilized cartridges. It wasn't just a console that had Cart 1, Cart 2, Cart 3. You had games that were sold separately on cartridges, and of course it was efficient for the, it's financially efficient. You could make a game for cheap, put it on a cartridge. You can code it, you can put it on a cartridge. It was very self-sufficient. You could sell a cartridge for $60 rather than sell it for $100 or $200 a cart. They were very cheap to make, and it was easy for companies to be able to code a game back then and sell it. Atari, they had a lot of third-party companies come in and make games for their consoles, of course. They would make games for the consoles. It was very easy to code a game, put it on a cartridge, boom, you could put it out there. And it's not really licensed by Atari. You didn't have video games that are officially licensed by Atari. Like, look at these underrated hidden gems, okay? There was a company, I forgot the name of them. They made pornographic games for the Atari. Like, two of them that's off the top of my head. Custer's Revenge and Beat 'em and Eat 'em. I have those games too. See, Beat 'em and Eat 'em, you're playing as this guy who's on top of a building with this giant dick overlaying over top of the edge, and you fucking quickly beat it, and then he's like going back and forth on the screen, dropping little globs of jizz down, and you play this hooker who's like you control on the bottom. You gotta go back and forth and catch the jizz in your mouth and all. It was similar to another game. I forgot what it was called, but it was hilarious. And then you got Custer's Revenge, which was a game where you play as General Custer himself, bare-ass naked General Custer, who's going back and forth, and he's got his big old schlong hanging out, and you got to get to the other side of the screen where this this naked Native American girl is standing there, and you're dodging arrows, so you gotta go back and forth, and when you get to the other side of the screen, you gotta keep tapping the button, and you're fucking this girl, and every time you push the button, it's like da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. It was so hilarious, and you're just fucking her for points and shit. But they had games like that, so there was developers making games like that for the console, and like I said, a lot of these, they weren't really closing their doors to outside indie developers. Like they had developers like Activision that were making games for the console. Activision made a lot of games for the Atari 2600, but like I said, it was very easy for somebody to code a game, put it on a cartridge, and sell it, and you could play it on the console. You got to do is pop it in, turn it on, and there it is. Spurred by the success of the VCS, other consoles were introduced, both from Atari and other companies such as Odyssey, the Intellivision, ColecoVision, the Atari 5200, and the Vectrex. The Vectrex was a console, but it had a small 5-inch black and white screen built into it too, and it had a controller as well. It was like a mini computer, but it played certain computer games. Notably, Coleco had sold. This is funny too. This was covered by James Roth over there at Cinemassacre, the Angry Video Game Nerd. He also covered this too. Coleco sold an add-on peripheral following the VCS that played their games on a ColecoVision, as well as bundling the console with a licensed home version of Nintendo's arcade hit Donkey Kong in 1982. ColecoVision had held roughly 17% of the hardware market, compared to the VCS's 58%. This was the first real threat to Atari's dominance in the home console market. So you figure there's other companies out there that were making video game consoles. They were getting in on the grave. They were like, okay, Atari's doing this. Let's do something similar. So you had other companies coming in. You had Mattel Electronics. You had Coleco. You had all these other video game companies coming in and making consoles of their own. And of course, and Atari is trying so hard to stay on top of the game. And they just tried too damn hard to the point where they fell. They just fell. They were making games that were very poorly made. They were very rushed. They weren't what were promised. Like there's the Atari version of Pac-Man. Come on, I've played it. A lot of other people have played the Atari version of Pong, not Pong, but Pac-Man. It was horrible. It was a horrible port. It wasn't like what it was in the arcades. So that was one of the games, alongside with E.T. and several others, that led to poor sales, video games being returned back to stores, refunds. There was a lot of money that Atari was losing out on. So, of course, they had to file for bankruptcy. They had to bury their dead. And, of course, that was the video game crash in 1983-84. People were buying at-home computers like the Commodore 64 and all that. PC buying became a prominent thing. Nobody was buying a video game console anymore. It's like, look, you got to take the faults of what happened with Atari, and you got to turn it around, and you got to say, okay, what can we do to the point where we're not going to end up like that again? Because there's going to be competition wherever you go. You got to figure something out. Video games were a revolutionary thing in the entertainment world. It's something that wasn't just for kids; it was for adults. It was entertainment. It's like movies. It was like music back in the day. So let's see. Lack of consumer confidence. I'm not going to go too much into that. Competition for home computers. Yeah. The console was competing with home computers. The Commodore. IBMs. There we go. Even IBM. The first IBM in 1981 was introduced, or IBM introduced the IBM 5150 PC, the very first PC for at-home use, for $1,565 base price, or equivalent to inflation today, which would be $4,455 in 2020, with inflation. So you had PCs that were, hitting the market with IBM, Commodore, all kind of stuff, And then you had the immediate result effects. So the release of so many games in 1982 flooded the market. Most stores had insufficient space to carry new games and consoles. As stores tried to return the surplus games to their publishers, the publishers had neither new products nor cash to issue refunds to the retailers. That is sad. A retailer sells a game. Let's say Kmart. Let's say Kmart bought E.T. and they put out for, let's say about $20,000 worth of E.T. cartridges to sell. That's $20,000 that Atari didn't have to issue in refunds to the retailer. So you buy $20,000 worth of a product, and you probably sell a fraction of that. And the rest of that is in refunds and returns. So you're looking to take a loss on that. It's like, okay, can we get a refund on this? We only made $4,000 in revenue off of something, for $20,000. So we're out $16,000. Can you give us a refund on that? Sorry, we don't have the cash to refund you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened with that. So you have a whole bunch of game cartridges and consoles that you can't sell. You can't even return them. Nobody wants the shit. So what happens? Well, let's see. Unable to return the unsold games to defunct publishers, stores marked the titles. They marked them down and placed them in discount bins and sale bins. So now Kmart is marking down the sale of all these copies of ET just to try to get rid of them. Because they figure somebody out there is going to want them. We can't hold on to them. We can't even fucking return the shit. Somebody out there, so we got to take a loss somewhere. We paid out $20,000 for all these carts. So now we got to try to make something back because we just lost profit right there. Recently released games, which initially sold for $35 at the time, equivalent to $99 in 2021. Jesus Christ. Well, some people are paying over $100 for a game nowadays anyway. They were marked down to $5 in markdown bins, or in 2021, inflation, $14 a game. The presence of third-party sales drew the market share that the console manufacturers had. Atari's share of the cartridge game market fell from 75% in 81 to less than 40% in 82, which negatively affected their finances. The bargain sales of poor quality titles further drew sales away from the more successful third-party companies like Activision due to poorly informed consumers being drawn by price to purchase the bargain titles rather than quality. By June of 83, the market for the more expensive games had shrunk dramatically and were replaced by a new market of rush-to-market low-budget games. Crane said that those awful games flooded the market at huge discounts and ruined video game business. A massive industry shakeout resulted. Magnavox abandoned the video game business entirely. iMagic withdrew its IPO the day before its stocks was to go public. The company later collapsed. Activision had downsized across 84 and 85 due to loss of revenue, and to stay competitive and maintain the financial security, began development of games for the personal computer. So they changed it. They shifted sides. So Atari was no longer producing cartridge-based games and focused on PC games. Because they figure, PC gaming, that was the future now. Because they pretty much abandoned game consoles because of what happened. So it's like, okay, the PC market is starting to boom right now. People are buying PCs. They're buying IBMs. They're buying Apple computers. They're buying Commodore 64s. Let's start making titles for that, because PC gaming, that's the future, baby. It still is to some people. Let's see. The crash also affected video game arcades, which had several years in the golden age since the introduction of Space Invaders in 78, but was waning by 83 due to the expansion of home consoles, the lack of novel games, and undue attention to teenage delinquency around video game arcades. While the number of arcades in the U.S. had doubled to 10,000 from 80 to 82, the crash led to the closure of around 1,500 arcades, and revenues of those that remained open had fallen by 40%. The full effects of the industry crash were not felt until 1985. Despite Atari's claim of 1 million in worldwide sales of 2,600 game systems that year, recovery was slow. The sales of home video games have dropped from $3.2 billion in 82 to $100 million in 85. That was the sales of video games that have been dropped. Analysts have doubted the long-term viability of the video game industry, and according to EA, Electronic Arts' Trip Hawkins, it had been difficult to convince retailers to carry video games due to the stigma carried by the fall of Atari until 1985. Two major events of 85 helped to revitalize the video game industry, however. One factor came from the increased sales of personal computers from Commodore and Tandy. helped to maintain the revenue for game developers like Activision and Electronic Arts and keep the video game market alive. So basically, even though Nintendo, when they came in, they pretty much saved the console market. Video games, however, was still a prominent thing over on PC. Because over on PC, you know, you had companies like Activision and EA. They're still making games for the PC. They're still making games, so they're still keeping the craze alive. So if you want to play the newest, hottest video game of 84 and 85, you would have to buy a $1,100 computer to play them on. You know, they're going to have the same graphics, or maybe worse, as the Atari 2600, but you're still surviving, sort of. It's kind of like, think of it as like traveling on the Titanic. You're on the Titanic. Let's look at Atari as the Titanic. The Titanic hits an iceberg, you know, the video game crash of 1983. You know, the Titanic thinks it's on top of the world. We're the king. I'm the king of the world. Woo! You think you're the Leo DiCaprio of the Titanic in 1983. You're on top of the world. Next thing you know, okay, you got all these video games that are being distributed and produced and marketed, and they're all shit. They're not doing well. The sales ain't doing well. They're being returned, and you can't even refund these companies like Kmart at the time. You can't refund them, you know, for all the sales that they lost. You know, it's like, oh, we don't have the money for it. Well, guess what? Bang! You hit an iceberg. You start to float. You know, you start floating. You start going down. You slow down. The boat's starting to go under, and now you're left with about 4 dozen lifeboats and shit. So you get on a lifeboat and you're sailing, you know, you're in cold waters. That's what I'm looking at right now when it comes to the video game crash of 1983. You were on a Titanic. You were sailing along. You were doing fine. You were the king of the world. You hit an iceberg. Everything starts going south for you. Next thing you know, you got little developers. I can see, Tom, I know you're watching, man. I could see you doing a meme picture for Discord where it's a picture of the Titanic and it has the Atari logo over it. And then the next scene, it's like you got Activision, you got EA, and these little lifeboats sailing and shit. That's them with the fucking computer class. That's them, you know, in PC gaming right there. That's them struggling, but they're making it. They're making it. They're staying afloat. They're making games for the home computer and all. And here comes the next boat, the boat that saves them. Here comes Nintendo. You know, here comes, two major things. The other major thing was the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America in 1985, October 1985. And following in 85, the industry began recovering. And by 1988, annual sales of the industry exceeded $2.3 billion, with 70% of the market dominated by Nintendo. In 86, Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi noted that the Atari collapsed because they gave too much freedom to third-party developers and the market was swamped with rubbish games. In response, Nintendo had limited the number of titles that third-party developers could release for their system each year and promoted its seal of quality, which allowed it to be used on games and peripherals by publishers that met Nintendo's quality standards. The end of the crash allowed Commodore to raise the price of the C64 for the first time upon its June 1986 introduction of the Commodore 64C, a Commodore redesigned for lower cost to manufacture, which Compute cited as the end of the home computer price war. One of the causes of the crash, you know, which was the price hike of computers back in the day. And they were pretty fucking high, too, I tell you. But yeah, you know, just these little things right here, you know, Activision, all these third-party companies, They're making games for the PC. They're still staying afloat. So you still had gaming at home if you had a PC. But then here comes this big ship, the mothership, Nintendo. You know, Nintendo's been in the market for well over 100 years. Well over 100 years. A lot of people don't know that. Nintendo started out making playing cards. You know, and when I say playing cards, I'm like, you know, you go to the store and you look at the front aisles and shit, and you see Bicycle playing cards. You know, yeah, Bicycle is one of the traditional companies that make playing cards, but back in the late 1800s, Nintendo did that. Nintendo did playing cards. Nintendo did toys. They had toy lines and shit over in Japan. And then right after the Atari and all that started, you know, coming into phase, you know, Japan, you know, I mean, Nintendo over there, they started getting into the video game phase. You know, they had the Game & Watch series, you know, these portable little games, handheld games that you could take with you. You know, they were kind of like Tiger Electronic games. We'll get into that in the future, too. That's what they were like. And then, of course, you know, they started on their first gaming console in 84, 85 over in Japan, the Famicom. And it was a hit over in Japan. Over here, we're sinking Titanic. We just lost Atari, you know, for a good bit. We're sinking Titanic, but then here comes Nintendo. The trumpets up in the air and shit, and they saved the video game industry in the U.S. They released the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985, and they did it smartly. And when Nintendo president came out and said this, and I'll read it again, Atari collapsed because they gave too much freedom to third-party developers, and the market was swamped with rubbish games, and that's what happened. Let's say it was Activision. I think it was Activision that did E.T. Was it Activision? I don't even know. I can't really see. I'm looking at a fucking picture of a crumbled box of... I'm not even going to fucking bother looking at it. But let's say Atari was responsible for E.T. You know, you overproduce a product for a product, and it gets a lot of backlash. And there's no money to cover that loss, that backlash. And of course, what do? The video game industry crashed, went under, and now this is what you got. This is pretty much what you got right now. So then there's long-term effects. The crash of 83 had the largest impact on the U.S. and rippled through all sectors of the global video game market worldwide. Even though sales of video games still remain strong in Japan, Europe, and Canada, it took several years for the U.S. industry to recover. The estimated U.S. $42 billion worldwide market in 1982 included arcade, console, and computer games. That dropped to $14 billion by 85. There was also a significant shift in the home video game market away from consoles to personal computer software between 83 and 85. After the crash occurred, some other changes were made to the North American model, which was the Famicom, or we see it as the NES. The console itself was engineered to look like anything but a game console. Nintendo wanted it to look more like a regular home high-tech item, such as a VCR, rather than a game console. That's why the Nintendo looked the way it did back in the 80s, that gray and white box. They wanted to resemble like a VCR. You put the cartridge in, you put it down like a VHS tape in a video in a VCR, and close it up. They didn't want it to look like a fucking game console. They just wanted to make it's bland. Boom, there you go. That's all you get. Nintendo's tactics were that with the crash just ending, taking a toll on the gaming industry and its consumers, the company would go for a look that was far removed from what they actually that was actually inside the unit. Nintendo was afraid that people would be wary after the events and would not want a console in their homes. The company even went as far as avoiding the words video game and software when referring to the console. The NES's design caused people to view 8-bit gaming as a classic gaming. 84 is when some of the long-term effects started to take toll on video game consoles. Companies like Magnavox had decided to pull out of the video game industry. with sales being so little to, and businesses not getting a good enough return on the sales, they also started to abandon the video game industry. The general consensus was that video games were just a fad that came quickly into the left. Guys, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break here. If you guys are still listening and watching, I'll be back in a little bit. We'll close this up. Enjoy the commercial break. I'll see you in a bit.
Uh-oh, Mr. Neighbor, look like this! Look out for that thing! Oh,
hey, look, we have more company.
Come in!
It's Officer Steve, and he says you're disturbing the peace.
Hey, wait! Oh, wait! Somebody call my alarm!
See you next time. Thanks, Pizza Head.
Coco here, and you won't believe your eyes. A blast from the past, he's come to take my prize. Loves the milk, chocolatey taste of Cocoa Krispies. But there's no way he's gonna catch me. This big old guy can try with all his might, but in the end, he'll be taking a flight. The taste of Kellogg's Cocoa Krispie cereals, incredibly milk chocolatey, part of a complete breakfast everybody wants. With every taste so milk chocolatey, everybody wants my Cocoa Krispies.
Now, back to our show. We'll be right back. Monday, it's an all-new, more phenomenal showdown.
We must begin before the time.
All right, guys, and I have returned. So, without going into a lot of more layman's terms with the video game crash here, there was so much more going on with the video game crash of 83 and 84. But like I said, if you compare it, at Tom, I know you pretty much gave up on unpacking over there. So if you want to bust up the PC and have some fun, like I said, get a picture of the Titanic and put the fucking labels of Atari and EA and Activision on and shit. And then here comes the big ship that came and saved the people on the lifeboats. Put like NES on there, like here comes Nintendo. Da 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 da. Oh yeah, but that is the legacy of the video games. We didn't go into a whole lot today. We spent too much time talking about Elden Ring and Call of Duty and all that, but it's video game related. But I did want to cover the basis of like the legacy of video games, like how video games started, who started it, what it revolutionized into, and then we covered up to pretty much mostly the video game crash of 83 and 84. But so we'll do another episode in the future. Tune in live. We'll talk more about video games, how they evolved. What's your very favorite video game franchise? What's your favorite video game out there? We'll talk more about video games. Yeah, it was an awesome stream, man. I'm gonna go ahead and end it here in a little bit. But yeah, I just cover bases. Like I said, the video game crash of 83 and 84. We were still pretty much steadily afloat, but thank God for Nintendo. Came in there, roll out the red carpet, saved us all. Nintendo saved the video game industry, and it was a slow recovery for the North American region, but we got there. So if it wasn't for people like I said earlier, if it wasn't for people like, Ralph Baer, if it wasn't for people like Nolan Bushnell, if it wasn't for companies like Nintendo, we wouldn't be playing video games today. I mean, we probably would be. We'd be playing on PCs. The PC market would be rocketing like it is now anyway. But, imagine a world where it was just PC gaming. You were just gaming on PC. You didn't have a magic box sitting down on the floor. Liam the leprechaun loves to fart. I'm sorry, my fiance came on. She sold me a book that she got for her daughter. It's for Leprechaun Day or whatever, for St. Patrick's Day. Fucking think. Star Fox was awesome on Nintendo. I think it's Nintendo, not Nintendo. We'll talk about that next time. We'll do another episode, like a part 2 on video games. So, anybody out there, like I said, if you ever want to join in on our Discord channel, our Discord server, it's free to download Discord. It's free to use. If you want to use it on mobile, you just turn on your microphone and all that. You ain't gotta worry about showing your ugly mug on camera or anything. Just kidding. But if you want to be a part of the show, just let me know. I will send you the link to our Discord server, and you can join in. We'll have some fun talking about video games on any platform, any year, any game, any franchise, whatever you guys want. We'll spend some time in here and talk about that. But yeah, thanks guys for coming out, and joining us today. Talking a little bit about video games. Right now, I know some of our audience is over there watching my buddy Jeff, the Jeff Hagee Show. So if you got a little bit of time, if he's still live, go on over there on twitch.tv/the Jeff Hagee Show. Check him out. I'm pretty sure he's doing some prank calls over there. I'm probably going to hop over as well and then check out, see what he's doing. But yeah, if you guys are watching us live on twitch.tv/Arrow with a Name, be sure to hit that follow button somewhere below there. Also, be sure, if you want to donate to the show, donation link is right below on our Twitch page. If you're watching us on YouTube, Arrow Entertainment, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you guys are on social media, if you're on Facebook, follow us on Facebook at Arrow12022 for updates on future streams. I may do a stream tomorrow. Not sure if I'll do another tune. I could do a tune-in live, or I could do a game stream tomorrow. Ain't going to be as long as yesterday. It ain't going to be a 4-hour stream like yesterday, trust me. So, anyway, guys, I am out of here. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, thank you for being here. My co-host, Mike. Catch you next time, guys. And until next time, stay tuned in.